Okay. Oops. Watch out. I'd like to call our city council meeting to order and ask everyone to join us in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. The roll, please.
Belke.
Here.
Belzak.
Here.
Kenny.
Here.
Marquez.
Here.
McIver.
Here.
Shower.
Here.
Seifert.
Here.
7 present.
We have a quorum. Before we begin our meeting this evening, I'd like to make a few comments. I'm guessing that a number of people are here regarding our discussion on the state's new gun law. And we have a very lengthy agenda this evening, and most of the usually at item 14 on the agenda is when we have residents speak to the issues that are on the agenda. And so most of you, if you can make it through the meeting to address the council then, that would be great. But if there are residents that cannot make it through the meeting, we do have, under item 5, an opportunity for residents to speak with a 3-minute limitation. And this, we initially put this in for the benefit of residents who just wanted to ask some quick questions of the city and not have to stick around for a whole meeting. So if you feel that you can't make it through the whole meeting to item 14, where we will be discussing the effects of this new state gun law, please, I ask you to come up and speak under item 5. All that I ask is that you recognize the 3-minute limit on it, and if you find that someone before you has spoken that you pretty much agree with what they have to say, please just affirm that you agree with those comments and not go into a long dissertation, if that would be okay with you. On the dais, we have a sign-up sheet. And we would ask anyone that comes up that speaks if they would write their name, and do you need their name and address on there?
Please print your name.
Yeah, I think it would be easier for our clerk if you did that. We'll ask you to announce it too, but it would make it easier for our clerk since there are so many residents here that want to speak. So with that said, is the council, are you all in agreement with that plan? Okay, we'll move on then. But let's see. Okay, so that moves us right to item 5. And before we have anyone come up and speak, I'd like to mention the names of all of the residents and non-residents who have sent emails regarding an assault weapon ban. And I'd like to name all those individuals so that we've already received your emails, you may not find it necessary to address the council. And those individuals are Kelly Glisson, Timothy Schmidt, Scott Hogg, I hope I pronounced that right. Actually, he went to the length of telling us he would sue us if we passed an assault weapon ban. And then we have Scott Arnold. We have Marty Graves, who was a former Darien resident. Bill Bell, who wrote to the city council. He said he lived in Alderman McIver's ward, and then he said he lived in Alderman Kenny's ward. And when I asked him exactly where he lived, he didn't respond. So, but that was Bill Bell. Kelly Glisson again. Claudia Barango. Ryan Workman. Christine Workman. Grant Workman. Mark Gregg. Edward Mack, Robert Bland, Ed Musial, yes, former police chief Ed Musial, Brad Drake, and Mary Boland. So these are the individuals. I'm presenting these for the record, and if your comments in these emails is sufficient, that would be great. Let's move on to questions and comments and announcements of a general nature. If anyone in the audience would like to come to the podium to speak to the council, please do so now. On anything, yes. If you feel that if you're speaking to us about the new state gun law, and you can't make it till the item 14, then please feel free to come up and speak.
How long is item 14?
Well, as I said, we have a long agenda, and there's a microphone right there, and a sign-up sheet right there, if you wouldn't mind.
Then. Jim Sobin, Darien.
I'm sorry, you.
Some are having trouble hearing.
Oh, is it on?
Well, if you're not in the room, that might be the reason why you can't hear.
You might want to raise the microphone up a little bit, too.
Yeah.
I'd just like to say that gun
Keep it
laws
in-
have no effect on criminals. We can see in Chicago where the handgun ban since Mayor Jane Byrne banned it because John Paul II, its third pope ago, was shot by a Bulgarian KGB agent. We're the last state to have.
Excuse me,
we still-
if
we-
you're dropping a little bit, yeah,
we still don't have concealed carry yet, you know, and I'm in my 70s, and I don't see how I'm better off defenseless, and you know, I don't want to be defenseless. I can't fight. I can't run. You know.
Okay, you know what, did you mention your name and address? I'm sorry.
Jim Sobin, 809 71st Darien.
Thank you, I'm sorry to interrupt you.
Oh, it's all right. Where was I?
Okay, you didn't want to be defenseless.
Oh, and I don't see how. You know, cocaine has been banned since the early 1900s, marijuana in the 1930s, assault weapons, true assault weapons in the military definition of full auto, were banned in 1934. And, you know, that don't affect criminals. I think all politicians and officers take an oath to defend our constitutional right, and I think there's a lot of perjury going on that these laws are passed.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, you got his name and address.
Well, yeah.
Okay, we're not going to get him to say. Someone else, do you feel like you want to speak now?
I could speak now before everybody leaves. I timed it. It's only about 3 minutes.
Oh, sure, come on up, and would you be so kind to
Sign the sheet.
sign that sheet if possible?
Good evening, everyone. I'm Bill Ryback, and I'm a longtime resident. I was here in 1966 before Darien Incorporated. I served this and surrounding communities as a firefighter for 34 years. As I became aware of the possibility of a Darien gun ban or other proposed new laws, my mind drifted back excuse me, to Mayor Weaver's original political run for the position she now holds. The day that she appeared at my house asking for votes in front of my residents, I listened attentively to her words, words of improvement for our city. I asked if she was anti-gun or pro-gun. She indicated to me that she wasn't anti-gun. The next question I asked is what brings me here tonight. And the question was, if you are elected, will there be any new gun laws in Darien? She answered, no. Many of my friends often ask for opinions on just about anything. Mine, as far as that election went, was vote for Weaver. She seemed honest, truthful, and genuinely interested in improving our city. Many of my friends come from both pro-gun and a neutral position, but feel my disdain for any laws which would restrict my rights, or for that matter, anyone else's. My father and 2 uncles fought for freedom and rights in World War II. After the war, my father wouldn't touch a gun, but allowed me to make my own choices. My uncles instructed me on respect for firearms, marksmanship, and followed that by teaching me to hunt. My first guns came from my uncles, and I treasured them and the memories to this day, and of course, all with my father's permission. I'm an NRA member. I have been for a long time. But what we are talking about here tonight isn't about hunting. It's my Second Amendment rights. Servicemen came back from World War II with souvenir guns that they brought back from overseas. In the same regard, the men and women who fought in Vietnam came home with a liking for the M16. They could no longer bring that home, but bought the civilian model when they got here, an AR-15, which they could hunt, target, shoot, and collect in a variety of configurations. I call them modern sporting rifles, not assault rifles. Assault rifle is a political term. It seems you might vote on something you don't even have a true definition of tonight. The military owns assault rifles. The public owns sporting arms. I won't go into what the cost of a lawsuit from various sources could mean to the city should you ban what you're trying to ban. Ask the city of Chicago what their gun control agenda has cost them. Ask them how good their 35 years of gun control has worked. Can we afford that suit? Remember, if you decide to ban anything, you're taking them away from legal citizens, not criminals, for the criminals don't care, and never will. With all due respect to the police department of our city, I say take care of the criminals. With 3 to 5 squad cars on the street, that could be difficult. When seconds count, the police are only minutes away. I did say with all due respect. The gun issue has come up years ago in Darien and was defeated. I ask you tonight to vote for the #1 choice on your agenda, to adopt no local ordinance and end this forever.
Thank you, Bill. Bill, did you take the pen that's up there for use as signatures? Okay, good. I saw you grab a pen, and I wasn't sure if it was the pen we need up there or not. Okay. Okay.
Kathy, you might want to remind people this is kind of for people that have to leave.
You know what? I would really like to remind you, the folks here, if you cannot stay to the time that we discuss this item, this is the time for you to speak. Otherwise, I'd appreciate if you would wait until item 14. Yes, sir.
Shall I speak or shall I wait till item 14?
If you can wait till item 14, I'd appreciate you would.
Is there any possibility of moving the agenda around so item 14 is addressed earlier?
No. No. No.
We have a lot of people here.
Yes, I realize that, but we're not going to change the agenda, no.
Okay. I second the previous speaker's sentiments entirely.
Okay, thank you very much.
Yep. Also, I'll make one small point. This assault weapon ban, so-called assault weapon ban, is based on cosmetic features. And if you take an ordinary-looking hunting rifle with a traditional white wooden stock, okay, and you take this piece of plastic right here and attach it, it turns that into a banned firearm. And as you can see, this has absolutely nothing to do with the performance characteristics of that firearm. It doesn't make the bullets go any faster. It doesn't make the bullets any bigger. It is simply a grip that the shooter, be it a target shooter or a hunter, recreational firearm user, uses to hold the firearm. That is it. And anybody can read the ordinance, and you'll see a list of strictly cosmetic features. Okay? I'm going to say one more thing. When the horrible events happened in Sandy Hook, okay, that I think affected, everybody in this country, okay, and it affected me. I'm also a parent, okay, but I'm also the husband of a first-grade teacher in Downers Grove, okay. My wife is in the classroom every day, okay, and she because of that, it really struck us quite deeply, okay? I own 2 AR-15s. One was a gift from her. I'm a lifetime NRA member. I'm a member of the Illinois State Rifle Association, and if a ban is passed on these ordinary sporting firearms, I will also be a party to the lawsuits against this town.
Thank you.
As this young man said.
Thank you very much.
Hi, since I came at 6 at the wrong time, I feel like I've been here for a very long time. I'm Mary. I'm a 7th Ward resident, and I did some research.
Mary who?
Mary, and that's all I'm going to give. I talked to the city administrator for the reasons of public safety. But I will,
Wants public safety?
No, she didn't want to leave her name for a personal issue. I said
Oh,
that would be fine.
I already talked to him about
Yeah,
that.
we
Sorry
just
about
talked
that.
Just prior
Okay.
to when you guys were upstairs.
All right.
Yeah. I'm absolutely opposed to the Darien ordinance that reduces my rights, places me at a $500 to $1,000 fine, and places my taxpayer dollars at the risk of having to defend what is essentially a Chicago-based initiative that doesn't even work in Chicago. By way of background, my father served honorably in World War II, became a veteran, and for a while was a police officer. So I was raised around guns and learned a healthy respect for them. When I realized the polarization of this particular issue, I did some research. And over 400,000 people a year die from various complications due to tobacco. We're not asked to ban cigarettes in Darien. We're not asking people to register to smoke. Medical errors account for 195,000 more deaths. We're not asking doctors to be banned in Darien. Motor vehicles cost 36,000 people their lives every year. We're not banning cars. We're not banning scary-looking pickup trucks. We're not banning minivans that carry too many people. And you know what? I looked at crime rates, and it turns out that more people are killed by baseball bats, by bludgeons, and even hands and feet than assault-style rifles. We're not banning baseball in Darien. We're not telling people that they can only carry baseball bats up to 10 inches, or wiffle ball, or plastic bats. We're not making households register their bats, and we're not going to fine them if they carry their bats to the baseball game in their car. A lot of people own handguns in the United States, but a lot of people own the kind of guns that would be outlawed by this type of ordinance. Why do most people own these? 67% say self-defense. And I will tell you that the White House commissioned a study, the CDC, to look at gun violence and to come up with suggestions. And you know what was surprising? And this is the National Academy of Sciences 2013 study. It found that, and it commissioned this study, by the way, as a result of Sandy Hook. And it came to the surprising conclusion that gun ownership and defensive use of a gun actually saves lives. So what about Darien? Well, guess what? There are about 10,200 some FOID card holders in Darien, in Downers, in Hinsdale, in Westmont, and in Woodridge. How many of these are using scary-sounding guns to commit shootings all the time? Exactly 0. The federal attempt ban to ban so-called assault weapons died in the Senate, and it died because it's not a national issue. So if Congress didn't think it was a national concern, why in the world are we considering limiting the rights of Darien citizens? Where even did this come from? So I did some more research, and I found that it comes from Chicago. In 1982, Chicago banned the handguns, and everybody knows about the Heller case that overturned the D.C. gun ban, and that occurred because that violates the Second Amendment. Well, guess what? Chicago had the same thing. And so they had to develop a registry, and they added fees and fines and all kinds of things to make it difficult. And the Seventh Circuit Federal Court of Appeals in July of 2011 said that the Chicago ordinance was really designed to make gun ownership as difficult as possible.
Mary?
Yes.
Mary, I'm sorry, 3 minutes is up.
Well, I'm just going to finish with a few points then. The court also warned that the city was thumbing its municipal nose at the Supreme Court of the United States. Did it make Chicago safer? The chief can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think in July 4th, they surpassed 1,000 shootings in Chicago. Why? Because criminals have no intent to follow any local ordinances or any state laws. How many shootings use these scary type of weapons? Less than 1%. I think the chief told me that was less
Mary,
than 2%.
I'd like to ask you to stop your comments now. We'd like to let others address the council. I think you've made your point.
And my final point would be that it's very expensive. Chicago has spent, thank you very much. Maybe somebody could cede their 3 minutes to me.
I totally agree with this lady. Mike Roljak, I'm a Darien resident, and I'd like to let her speak for my 3 minutes.
Thank you so much. Guess what?
Where we're at.
Mayor,
I think I'm
just
sorry.
one comment, just in case people came in afterwards. What the mayor mentioned part of the meeting is there's ample time also as we get further into the agenda.
Yes.
The
Sure.
3-minute rule that she mentioned now is to give people an opportunity to say things now in the event that they have to leave and can't stay forward.
Okay.
Certainly, obviously, there's people in the room. We'll get to all those. But I
Sure.
heard people clapping in the back, and I thought maybe they missed the beginning of the meeting.
Right,
while the mayor
everybody should
offered
have
that.
an opportunity to speak here. Thank you so much for that comment. And for the additional 3 minutes, I would just like to finish up and by saying, Chicago Superintendent Gary McCarthy said it best when he acknowledged, and I quote, aiming at assault weapons misses the mark when dealing with Chicago's gang violence. The weapon used is generally a handgun, and rarely is it purchased through legal channels. So the people who think this type of ordinance somehow solves gun violence don't have a clue. Worse, these bans are incredibly expensive to taxpayers. I've mentioned some of the court cases. I will tell you that I found research that suggested that Chicago had to spend $500,000 defending its gun ban just in the McDonald case.
1.4 million. They consumed Oak Parks.
And then in the Ezell case, they had to spend thousands more, and now in the Wilson case, the Illinois Supreme Court in 2012 sent it back for a full trial. And I'll tell you what, that's going to be putting Chicago taxpayers on the line for millions of more. Why in the world would we in Darien want to risk becoming a defendant in these types of lawsuits? What local services do we plan to give up for Darien to pay for all of this? And it took another costly lawsuit, and I see you're going to have a presentation on House Bill 183, which is now the law because the legislature had to override the governor's veto. There's a lot of information in House Bill 83. I'm sure you're going to go over it. But I will tell you that overwhelmingly communities that have considered the Chicago-style ordinance have already rejected it. To have a patchwork system in Illinois makes no sense. And I would guess at the risk of the thousands of dollars to defend a system that doesn't even work for Chicago doesn't assist anyone. It serves no public purpose. It should be enough for our veterans, for our retired police, and most of all for the rest of us to meet the comprehensive legal standards in House Bill 183. And so I don't think Darien citizens are any less trustworthy than Westmont or Western Springs citizens that have both rejected this ban. I don't want my hard-earned taxpayer dollars to go to a legal defense fund for something that doesn't even work for Chicago, so I'm absolutely opposed. Thank you.
This is not working.
The sheet has disappeared, but the
this
pen
is
is
not
still here.
working.
That's the good news. I can multitask, so good evening, everyone.
Sir?
Mark, raise the microphone.
You know what?
Thanks, Joe.
You know what? Could you step back for a minute, please? Thank you. I just made a decision here. We have some recognition we wanted to do this evening, and I'd like to do that right now. We do not want to keep some residents or some police officers waiting for the recognition. We will pick up the comments right after we do the recognition. So let's move right to the mayor's report, and I'm going to be skipping receiving the communications at this point. We'll move it back in the agenda. I want to move to the mayor's report. We have some recognition that we wanted to do. Is Sheena here? Good. Okay. We wanted to recognize a Darien resident by the name of Sheena. You're going to have to come forward, and you're going to have to tell me exactly how to pronounce your name because it's Pantha Plakel. Did I get it almost right? We'd like to recognize this young lady because of, I'd like to read our certificate of recognition for you. In recognizing of achieving the top 2% of your class of 650 students at Downers Grove South High School with a grade point average beyond the 4-point scale. Congratulations, and
That would get a picture for you.
thank you very, congratulations to you. That's a wonderful, where are you going to school? U of I. Congratulations, that's my alma mater.
Campus or
Yes.
Champaign?
Champaign.
Okay.
Thank you for doing such hard work. Okay. Let's move on to item B under the mayor's report, a motion to approve a resolution commending and awarding the Police Life-Saving Award to Officer Lauren Renner. And actually to Officer William Greenberg. Both of the resolutions read pretty much the same, so I wanted to read one and mention both of your names. But this resolution, let me read the resolution for Officer Greenberg and Officer Renner. Be it resolved by the City Council of the City of Darien, whereas on the 16th of March, 2013, at approximately 3:29 a.m., Officer Lauren Renner and Officer William Greenberg were dispatched to the 900 block of Walnut Drive for a male who was having a heart attack. And whereas the officers arrived at the scene prior to the arrival of the Tri-State Fire Department personnel, the officers discovered a 58-year-old man in bed and suffering the symptoms of an apparent cardiac arrest. And whereas, based upon their training, the officers immediately moved victim to the floor and initiated resuscitation efforts and began CPR. Officers Renner and Greenberg prepared the AED, which stands for the Automatic External Defibrillator, and attached the telemetry leads to the victim for evaluation. Shortly thereafter, the AED instructed officers to shock the victim once, which they did, and to continue CPR. Whereas Officer Renner and Officer Greenberg continued CPR until Tri-State Fire Department arrived on scene, and paramedics then assumed the life-saving efforts. The victim was then taken to Hinsdale Hospital for further evaluation and treatment, and whereas it was determined through the discussions with EMS personnel and the attending physician that if not for the quick response time, as well as Officer Renner's and Officer Greenberg's training, skills, and willingness to immediately put those skills into action, the victim would not have had a chance of survival. Be it resolved by the City of Darien, DuPage County, Illinois, we proudly commend Officer Lauren Renner and Officer William Greenberg and award them the Police Life-Saving Award. Do I have a motion to approve this resolution? Alderman McIver, Alderman Schauer, Alderman Belke. I think all of the council members are motioning and seconding that one. The roll, please.
McIver.
Aye.
Shower.
Aye.
Belke.
Aye.
Belzak.
Aye.
Kenny.
Aye.
Marquez.
Aye.
Seifert.
Aye.
Weaver.
Aye.
Ragona. Aye. Corin.
Aye.
Murphy.
Aye.
Vanna.
Aye.
12 ayes, unanimous.
It's unanimous. Officer Renner, you can't get away that fast. Come on up. Come on up. You have to receive your resolution. Suitable for framing. And here you go. And Officer Greenberg, thank you for all that you do. And I think all of the council members would like to shake your hand, too.
Thank you.
Great job. Come on. How's it like home? Okay.
Good job, Bill. Thanks.
Congratulations.
That's not the end for Officer Greenberg. We'd like to consider, the swearing in of a new sergeant.
Okay, I always have to give my little spiel.
Yes, you do.
I'll do it fast because I know it's a busy agenda. Bill started with us in 1996. While he served on the department, he's been a field training officer, evidence technician, breath op. He also helped me with a car project. He has a love for cars and equipment, so he helped me do the project last year, which helped me out immensely. Funny story about Bill and I. We look similar, I suppose, if I take my glasses off. When he started in 96, I was one of his training officers, and we would go to a call or stop in at a gas station, and they go, "You guys twins?" I mean, in all seriousness, and then they'd ask us if we were brothers, and I always would ask them, "Who's older?" And I'm the older one, but they always guessed Bill was older than me. I don't get it. I go to the car wash to wash a squad, and they go, "Why are you back? You were just here." And I go, "No, I wasn't here." Well, Bill had been there before me, and people can't tell the difference. We're both big guys, bald heads, so we got mistaken all the time. Pretty funny. I called Bill my twin or my evil twin, depending on what's going on. We have different personalities. Tonight we're swearing in Bill, which is exciting for us, and he'll start as a patrol sergeant at the beginning of next shift, July 29th. So now, if Joanne Ragona could swear him in because the FPC members weren't available tonight, we'll have Bill step up to Joanne.
Okay. All right.
John, if Bill's family members want to come up for pictures too, they can come.
Yes,
They don't want to, okay.
they don't want to?
Please raise your right hand and repeat
Okay.
after me. I, and state your name,
I, William Greenberg,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution of the United States of America,
that I will support the Constitution of the United States of America,
the Constitution and laws of the State of Illinois,
the Constitution and laws of the State of Illinois,
the laws and ordinances of the City of Darien,
the laws and ordinances of the City of Darien,
the rules and regulations of the Darien Police Department,
the rules and regulations of the Darien Police Department,
and that I will faithfully discharge the duties
and I will faithfully discharge the duties
of the office of Sergeant
as the office of Sergeant
for the City of Darien,
for the City of Darien,
to which I have been appointed,
to which I have been appointed,
according to the law
according to the law
and to the best of my ability.
and to the best of my ability.
Congratulations.
Thank you again, Bill. They all followed you up here. Congratulations.
Bill, it's okay to have a picture taken with your family. It's
As
okay.
part of the tradition, we
Oh,
do
yes.
a pinning ceremony, and Bill's going to have his dad, who's a retired copper, pin him. So hopefully he won't ram through the vest and poke Bill.
It's usually the wife.
There you go. With honor and pride, I say congratulations, Sergeant William Greenberg.
Ready?
Okay, thank you for all coming.
Thank you, and we're going to retire over to the training room for
Okay.
cake and coffee.
Okay, thank you. Let's move on to the Shive Hattery report. For the audience, the Shive Hattery report is a report we asked the consultant Shive Hattery to take a look at our strip mall that's on Cass Avenue between 75th and Plainfield Road to see what options we had for rehabbing that facility. And that's what Mr. Martha is here to speak to. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor, Council. We did do this observation report and give an opinion over the last couple of weeks. For those that are familiar with this building, it is a retail building that's between 75th and Plainfield, and the site topography is such that the building has no room for expansion due to the elevations of the individual lots in that area. So part of the observation that we did was look at not only the building but the site, and relative to the commercial design that's being done currently, and ordinances and good design, basically. There is intent for the property at 75th and Cass to be a bank, and it's important that these sites have cross-access. That would be impossible as the condition stands right now because there's a wood timber retaining wall that changes the grade between the two sites. On the Plainfield site at Cass Avenue, there was a fueling station there, which is now gone. But the grades between that property and the retail property is also approximately 1.5 to 2 feet. So it would be impossible for a fire engine to fight a fire in that site, very difficult. He couldn't get around the building because the site does not have accessibility around it. He would have to run off on the residential property to the east to fight the fire in the back. So I think the fire department would like to see improvements on that site. As for the building itself, there's a lack of good security lighting, good site lighting. the building is an old building. Everybody knows this. It was built back in the late 70s. It has a wood frame construction, believe it or not, the roof. It's not typical to do that in a retail building. It has no sprinkler system. The system itself, the roof system, is obsolete. It should be a single-ply roof, not a multi-ply roof. There have been many roof problems. The storefront is single-pane glass. It's an energy-efficient design. There's a tremendous waste and cost in heating and cooling the space. The ceiling clearance, which is to the underside of the drywall protection required for a roof frame, is only 10 feet. Now, in most retail stores, 10 feet is pretty typical for the ceiling. But in this case, most of the ductwork was exposed if you don't put up another ceiling underneath it. So in many of the tenant spaces, there is ductwork, which is insufficient. It's put in a very inefficient way. The electrical, the lighting is all exposed conduit. In other words, this is an eyesore, in my opinion, for the retailers that are in the Darien area to have a building of this quality and then have to meet standards that are higher. So we looked at all the non-compliant items of the building, made a summary of those items. We came back with the opinion that, yes, there are two solutions to the problem. One is to repair all the non-compliant issues and put a new facade on the building, redo the site work so that you have protection from fire and also for access between the sites. It needs landscaping. There is none. There was some idea of putting some kind of a park effect on the corner. That could be done, but there's not enough room on the other site to do anything, really. It was intended as a gas station. The other opinion that we had was that we think that this could be done in a two-part design because there are some good tenants in the building. Some of the tenants are there because that is the best rent they can get in the area. Some of them have told me that if they have to move out, they will go bankrupt. That's the situation in the retail market. There's a liquor store, a food store, a laundromat, insurance company, the standard service-type tenants except for the meat market and the liquor store. But the liquor store, though it does a good business, is it the appropriate use? I don't know. That's a decision that had to be made by the board in terms of remodeling this for the purpose of saving that tenant. The other tenants are borderline tenants. I mean, in my opinion, in doing retail, I did the Darien Marketplace design. I did the Walgreens retail down at Lamont and 75th. You can't compare these buildings to this building. So the last opinion that I had on the building for a solution was to build a new building. And it needs further study to do a detailed analysis of the cost differential, and I think that's what's intended by Phase 2. But in my opinion, if a client came to me and asked me about this building, I would say, I don't think it's worth your investment. The property is probably worthless with that building on it. You are making some income, but it's costing you money too. And in the future, it's not going to get any cheaper. If you go and build this building 4, 5, 6 years from now, the construction cost will be enormous. The remodeling can be done. We can keep this building going and leasing to the same kind of tenants because national tenants won't come. Those are considerations. We will work up the cost for you in Phase 2 of each of those options. Those two options. One, new building, and I prefer 2 buildings because we need circulation around. It's too long of a building for that site. And we can also utilize the corner with the new design. We can utilize that corner of Plainfield and Cass. We'll make that report to you, and that's something that we're hoping you'll review and approve.
Okay, question, Alderman Marquez?
You didn't mention it, but you alluded to it in the memo we received. you said just bringing it up to standard would be 75% of the cost of building new buildings.
Yes.
And that doesn't even consider a new facade or
Oh, no.
renovations or landscaping.
no.
What estimate did you use? Obviously, you have an estimate what it would take to build 2 new buildings, because you said it would cost 75%
Well,
of that.
in the cost of building the buildings, you have to figure the cost of demolition of the building
Correct.
that you have there. Plus, you have to import good grading material to bring the site up. So you're working on 2 sites, not just the one. You add that into the cost of the new building. But, as I stated in my report, the existing building, the only thing that's left is the wood frame roof. And the wood frame roof is not a good design in the first place.
Alderman Shower?
And you also said that even if we put the money into it, the national retailers are not going to come. We're still going to have sea-level retail there, correct?
Yes.
Okay, so we're chasing good money after bad.
You can put a beautiful elevation on the building, but the clearance underneath the structure is still 10 feet. The mechanical system would have to be totally replaced, and it couldn't be done as it is currently designed in new retail because of the structure.
Gotcha.
Brian?
Yeah, just moving forward, and it was mentioned, our intent is to bring back to Municipal Services Committee this Phase 2 study. You know, this initial study was very inexpensive, and we needed to get some of this information back to the council. So in terms of what would be the next step, just so the council's aware, would be Dan's working on the agenda for the next Municipal Services Committee. We'd like to bring that proposal there and go over it a bit more in detail and have the committee really look at that. Because again, I think as I looked at the report, certainly to make a final decision, we lack real actual hard numbers, and part of this report could give us those numbers. But if the council wants to bypass any of that based on general recommendations and best practices, maybe they would want to do that. So we're hoping after the next committee meeting, then we could bring that back to the city council. And then also Alderman Marquez and the committee could talk a bit more maybe about the park setting, because obviously the more you take up with open space, the less you have eventually as a money-making opportunity. But I think that, as the council saw, there certainly is a value to having some open space there. So again, just so everybody understands kind of what we're thinking at in terms of scheduling the next phase.
Alderman Kenny?
It was mentioned about fire access off of Plainfield to the new Chase, proposed location. How does that affect the Chase building going up in the future?
Well,
The access is absolutely essential to all of everybody that
Yeah,
would be
there
in
is no access right now. Whatever is done on the corner there of 75th, the southwest corner of 75th and Cass, is going to have to be worked out with the city, because the grade level, you have one access from Cass onto that site. It would be extremely difficult for fire equipment to come onto the site and fight a fire on the bank site. As well, all 3 sites are affected by access and continuity of drive around the building.
Dan, did you want to make a comment?
Yeah, and the architect, Wayne, might not be privy to all the information with the site.
Yeah.
There isn't a cross-access agreement. With the cross-access agreement, Chase is responsible for creating new ingresses and egresses and shutting down certain driveways along Cass Avenue, as well as 75th Street, as well as Plainfield, and they are to address the grading issue as well, as he had spoke of on the Plainfield side as well as the 75th Street side.
That's what I want to know. Thank you.
Okay. Okay, so we'll move on to the Phase 2 study, and that will be brought forward to the Municipal Services Committee for review, and then from there brought back to the City Council. Thank you, Mr. Marth.
Okay,
Thank you.
Okay. Claire, I saw you earlier. Claire Bongiovanni, do you want to do your chamber report, please?
Good evening. Welcome, new chamber member. Hokkai Sushi Cuisine, located at 2425 75th Street in Darien. Hokkai Sushi Cuisine will be celebrating their grand opening ribbon-cutting ceremony tomorrow evening at 5 p.m. Cass Avenue Motors will be celebrating their ribbon cutting ceremony on August 7th, 5 p.m., and it was announced today that Chuck Southern Cafe will be celebrating their grand open and ribbon cutting ceremony on August 8th at 5 p.m. Battle of the Bands and Darien Idol return to Darien Fest this year. Registration deadline is July 31st. For more information, visit www.darienchamber.com. The Darien Chamber of Commerce is proud to present their Shop Local, Shop Darien campaign. The campaign is officially in full swing and is mutually beneficial to businesses and consumers within the community. The Darien Chamber of Commerce is selling Shop Local preferred cards to anyone and can be purchased for $5 at City Hall or selected businesses who are selling the cards. The Shop Local Shop Darien preferred cards entitles a cardholder to exclusive deals, discounts, and offers from participating Darien Chamber member businesses who display the Shop Local, Shop Darien window decal in their storefront. Shop Local, Shop Darien is designated to create an incentive for Darien residents to keep their revenue within the community in which they live. It is also designated to increase traffic and revenue to chamber member businesses in Darien. Shop Local will be providing several preferred offers through participating chamber businesses on a constant basis and will be focusing on Shop Local, Shop Darien celebration weeks. Shop Local will be highlighting and drawing businesses to restaurants, professional services, retail, and non-for-profits during celebration weeks. From July 22nd to August 3rd, Shop Local will be having a restaurant celebration week, which will showcase some of Darien's finest places to dine. These chamber member businesses will have special offers for patrons who present their Shop Local, Shop Darien preferred card. Be on the lookout for the Shop Local window decal. Please stay tuned for other celebration weeks to come and your monthly preferred offers, which are constantly added to the Chamber website at www.darienchamber.com. This evening, I do have one guest that I would like to introduce, Jason Samhan from Cass Avenue Motors.
Jason, thank you for sitting through the meeting.
Thank you.
I met you at your establishment. You have some very fine vehicles there.
Thank you for coming. So I wanted to start off just by thanking the City of Darien for allowing us the opportunity to grow our business. For those of you who don't know who we are an internet-based luxury auto dealership. We sell luxury cars at wholesale prices. So for anyone that is interested in visiting our location, we're located at 8404 Wilmette in Darien. And for those of you that would like to contact us, you can find us on the internet or reach us directly at 630-515-3555.
And that's Cass Avenue Motors. What's your email address, Jason?
It's CassAvenueMotors.com.
Okay.
I'm not involved in that piece of it.
Okay.
It's CassAvenueMotors.com.
Okay.
And I would like to interrupt. I'm sorry, he's not Jason.
Yeah, my name's Gus DeLay. My partner is Jason. He's sitting in the back.
Oh, hey, Jason, you were afraid to come up here and talk? Thank you both for coming in.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you.
Welcome. Welcome to Darien.
Yes, welcome.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you.
I'm going to put you on next, okay? Okay, we're going to move right to the presentation that, the PowerPoint presentation that we had planned for this evening. Our attorney this evening with us is Peter Koblenz, and he has worked extensively on this issue. So we're going to do this presentation so that all of you can see it and know what we're looking at tonight. I think there's been a lot of misinformation out there as to what we're even going to be talking about tonight. So please, Peter, go ahead.
I'm going to go over this. I suspect that a lot of people in the audience already know a lot of this. My experience so far has been that our Second Amendment enthusiasts are pretty well informed on a lot of this. So, but bear with me as I go through this for folks who are not so well informed. What we have in Illinois right now, and as you know, the new concealed carry law, which is HB 183, went into effect on July 9 when the governor's veto was overridden. That stemmed from the Seventh Circuit Court of Appeals decision in Moore versus Madigan, which struck down much of Illinois' gun law, unlawful use of weapons statutes, on the basis that Illinois prohibited concealed carry and that there was, based upon the U.S. Supreme Court decision in Heller, a fundamental right to use handguns. At least that's what the issue in Heller was, with it involved a handgun for self-defense purposes. So the legislature negotiated HB 183. It's now law. And now the state police they're going to be in charge of establishing rules and a process for the issuance of concealed carry permits. The law requires them to have this system in place in 6 months, and then, so probably about 9 months from now, assuming the process works as the legislature intended, first concealed carry permits will be issued in Illinois. It's an extensive bill. Lots of provisions in it. I'm not going to attempt to try and go over it. But a person who is issued a concealed carry license is required to carry that license at all times. And there are a number of limits on where a licensed concealed carry individual
Peter, can I interject 1 second? The things you're mentioning are law now that a municipality like Darien has no say. This is what exists in the new law, and nothing our city council is talking about this evening. What you're doing now is, again, letting everybody know about the new law.
That's correct.
Okay,
That's
thank
correct.
you.
Yeah, the city can't affect these things, but part of the PowerPoint asked me to address these issues.
Exactly.
So there are limits on where concealed carry licensees can take their handguns. What brings this before the city council this evening is that part of the negotiation in the General Assembly ended up including a provision that stated that municipalities could regulate the ownership and possession of assault weapons. And in the legislature, it said assault weapons defined by model and type or by cosmetic features, so long as such a regulation was adopted within 10 days of the effective date of the law. So now the law is effective as of July 9, so that the city council is faced with the decision of whether you're going to adopt an ordinance regulating the ownership and possession of assault weapons, because after July 19, the statute establishes a preemption of home rule power to regulate assault weapons. That's why these are on the agenda. I think your agenda memo states what the general options are for the city. You don't have to do anything, and then you would allow the state of Illinois and the United States government to regulate assault weapons or other firearms within the city. We've also presented an ordinance to regulate the ownership and possession of assault weapons by requiring that in the home, when not under the immediate control of the FOID card holder and owner of the weapon or an authorized user, that they be disabled with a mechanical lock or placed in a gun safe. And that's our safe storage requirement. And then also would require that, and it regulates the transport of weapons, but I want to make clear here that what it does, and the state law is somewhat odd in this respect. It preempts home rule power to regulate the transport of firearms by FOID card holders. But there's a whole world of people who transport firearms who are not FOID card holders. So the solution to this, rather odd legislative decision was to adopt or to suggest in this ordinance the regulations that are already in the state law that are enforced by the state police and by the police in Darien. These are exactly the state requirements for transport of firearms. So that's how we address that situation. That's one ordinance. The other ordinance is effectively modeled directly after Cook County's ordinance, and it is a ban on assault weapons. That would, in 90 days require that persons who own, assault weapons, which are within the definitions or are named, itemized by model and name, would be required to, bring the weapons into the police department or take them out of the city to be stored somewhere else. So those are the three options that were presented to the City Council this evening.
Any questions for Attorney Koblenz? Alderman Schauer?
We are sitting here, confirm if I'm right or wrong, because we are a home rule community. This is correct.
Well, that's an interesting question. That's actually being debated. People have different opinions on it. It's another example of a poorly written law. But what is clear is that as a home rule unit, on July 20th, you won't have any ability. You will be preempted from adopting regulations. But a number of non-home rule units and a number of attorneys I'm aware of have taken the position. I understand it. I don't have to deal with it tonight because you're home rule. That non-home rule can also regulate assault weapons under the terms of the statute.
Okay.
Alderman McIver?
I have a question. I think this is pretty new, obviously, to people who are not familiar with gun ownership. And I think for anyone listening, it's probably pretty important for people to read through the legislation that is the law now, because you did mention where it's prohibited, mostly addressing public facilities, but I think there's an impact on private businesses, private business owners, and even private property and private residents. I believe that there's a requirement that, if you don't want those types of weapons on your property, the burden is on the owner to post a sign of a certain kind in order to do that. So I think it's just important for all the residents and business owners in Darien to become familiar with this law so that they know what they need to do if they want to.
That is part of the law, that businesses have the right to not allow weapons in their businesses.
But they have to post that.
That's right, and I've asked staff to investigate making up decals for our businesses if they choose to post something like that to not allow weapons into their facilities. Yes?
Don't do that yet because the law says that the Department of State Police will come up with a sign.
Okay.
And so that's the one you'll be using, and it has to be posted at a conspicuous location.
Okay, all right.
Is that for private residences also?
For private residences, no signs required.
No signs required.
Yeah, but no signs required. I mean, you cannot, if you want to take your weapon into your son-in-law's house, you should probably ask him if it's okay.
What was really confusing to me is in the law, in this concealed carry law, is they identified businesses that are 50% food and 50% bar. You can carry a gun into those facilities, but if it's a bar, 100% bar, you cannot carry a gun into that. And parks.
It's a 50% revenue test.
Yes.
If it's from 50% of revenues from alcohol sales.
I think a huge burden is on the state police in this law, and I'm sure the state legislature, in its wisdom, provided no funds for them to develop any of these rules. I'm sure.
Yeah,
the permit system, the investigation, the background checks, all of that. Yeah, none of that, I'm sure, is provided funds to there. Any of the other aldermen questions? Alderman Marquez?
Peter, I just wanted to clarify, because I was reading House Bill 183 today, and I read the section about the fees. And at the last council meeting, someone was asking if the municipality gets anything. In the legislation, it says of the $150 fee, $120 goes to this new Illinois State Police Firearms Fund. 20 of that would go to mental health, and then the other $10 would go to something else. Is that true? I mean, that's...
Yeah, I'm not aware of any of that money being returned to municipalities.
And the reason I say that is I had a number of people who would say this is just the municipality's way of trying to make money. It doesn't sound like any municipality is going to make any money on this. It's a state of Illinois thing.
That's correct.
Okay.
That's correct. Any other questions by, yes?
I'm sorry, Peter, in terms of the PowerPoint, I did email that to the city council, and if you could just maybe talk about the ordinance, just so there's a clear understanding of the assault weapons defined.
Yeah, the assault weapons, Yeah, it's largely taken from the Cook County ordinance. There is one, significant difference. Yeah, semi-automatic pistols as assault weapons is a little bit unusual. So we threw out some of the Cook County restrictions there because under the state law, handgun regulation is preempted. So a semi-automatic pistol can be treated as a assault weapon when it is a firearm that is not designed or intended to be operated with one hand. So that's the major difference there. But there's a listing by model and name of firearms that are considered assault weapons. They all contain various features. Folding rifles, folding stocks, hand grips. A lot of it is characterized by the ability to, and the intent of being able to operate the firearm with two hands. I mean, that's, if you want to boil it down as I read it, and I didn't have to try and become a Second Amendment expert until about 6 weeks ago. As I read it, that's about, operating the weapon.
Get a little closer into the mic, too.
Oh, I'm sorry, yeah. But, the chief has presented some examples of what would be considered assault weapons, or you can call them assault-style weapons. I know that there are folks in the crowd who will disagree with any definition that is short of fully automatic, but that's the way the law is written. I mean, actually, it's said to define it by model, name, and type, or by cosmetic features. That's the guidance that the legislature provided to us. So that's what this is based upon.
Any other questions by
So
counsel?
if I had a weapon, and I had a really weak hand, and I put another handle on the weapon in order for me to be able to control it better, that would be considered an assault weapon.
It could. It could. You just got to, yeah. Yeah, I would want to see, what it is that you've done and how you've modified it. But that's the intent there. That's one of the features.
Thank you.
Okay, any other questions from the Alderman Belzak?
Is there any legislature coming down the pike in Illinois regarding assault weapons at this time?
I don't see it.
Yeah. I'm sure we'll have test cases that come along, but right now there isn't anything.
No, I don't see it. Perhaps when the Cook County litigation, I think it was mentioned by one of the speakers, Wilson case is decided, we'll know a little bit more about how courts look at this definition of assault weapons, regulation of assault weapons. But right now, that's a big unanswered question in this whole area, which has really been opened up since the Heller decision. I mean, all gun laws all over the country have to be re-examined because of that decision. And as the Supreme Court said in Heller, this is not the last word on the topic. There's a lot of questions that remain to be determined. Assault weapons, assault-style weapons, I'll use that. I think that's a fair term in many respects. We don't know what standard is going to be applied to determine whether and to what extent those are protected for self-defense purposes under the Second Amendment. And I think that's the fairest thing I can say. We really don't know. We'll find out somewhere in the next 5, 10, 20 years.
Thank you.
Okay. I think one of the ordinances that was presented in our packet was one regarding the storage of weapons in the home, which is probably the concept that we would be most favorable to. But at this point, I would like to, if there's no other questions by the council, I would like to start having the residents that are here address the council. Now, I'd like to start out with Darien residents first, please, and we still have the 3-minute rule in effect, so we'd appreciate it. Since there's such a large crowd, we'd like you to keep it to 3 minutes, and if you are a subsequent speaker and you agree with everything that's said before, please state that, and then maybe you can curtail your comments to a shorter version. So I think you were next in line. Did you write your name and phone number? Not phone number, address.
I'm very compliant. Thank you very much. My name is
sorry.
My name is Mark Gregg.
I'm sorry, you're compliant?
I'm a very compliant individual. I wrote down my name about 25 minutes ago when I was preparing my 3-minute comment. So yes, I've written it down and the pen is right here.
And we also have your comments via email.
Yes,
So
I do.
Okay,
I
great.
just want to address a point or ask Mr. Koblenz to make a point of clarification that possibly Chief Brown could comment on as well. You had mentioned that the safe storage rule would also impact the transport of firearms. I believe you stated that something to the effect that someone cannot be in possession of a firearm or transport it. The only way you can transport a firearm legally in the state of Illinois is to own one of these. This is a FOID card. Many of you may have never seen one before, but this is a firearm owner's identification card that's issued by the state of Illinois police. The police are the ones that issue these cards that give me, the bearer of the card, the ability to transport and to operate and have in my possession a firearm. If Chief Brown stopped someone on a Darien street and they were in possession of a firearm or ammunition, they would be in violation of state of Illinois law if they did not have a FOID card in their possession. So I just wanted to clarify that.
I understand that. Thank you.
So thank you, because I believe you misspoke. I am a Darien resident, and I am here to ask the City Council to adopt no ordinance to allow state of Illinois law to regulate firearms in Darien. I have read the July 15th Darien City Council agenda memo and the Brian Day analysis of House Bill 183 published July 11th on the Illinois Municipal League website, which describes 3 options for municipalities to consider regarding firearms in the community. And I'm here to ask the City of Darien to adopt no ordinance and allow state of Illinois law to regulate firearms in Darien. Thank you for considering my request. And in my 2 emails that I did send to all of you, I am a certified NRA rifle instructor. For those of you who have never shot a firearm before, I'm more than happy to take you to a shooting range, more than happy to educate you on the proper handling and shooting of a firearm. Thank you very much.
A little bit shorter than him, so I'll.
Well,
close down so
I don't
everybody
recognize
can
you
hear me.
without your hat on. Your
I
VFW
realize
hat on.
that. I wanted to make sure, as is the rules in our organization,
I
that
appreciate that.
we do separate
Correct.
our professional and our personal issues here. But good evening, Madam Mayor and members of the council. My name, for those of you who don't know, is Matt Goodwin, and I'm a resident in Ward 2. I'll have my exact address down here as well. And I'd like to start off by applauding all of you tonight for deliberating this issue. It's a very emotionally charged topic, as you can see by all the people that are in the room, all the people that are emailing you and calling you over and over about this issue, and your willingness to take it up shows your desire to consider an issue that is of significant importance to all of your constituents. But I came here to cast my opposition to the ban on assault weapons and high-capacity magazines that you've proposed tonight. There's all this talk about assault weapons over and over, but your ordinance also addresses high-capacity magazines. On many fronts, this ordinance is flawed and would create significant problems for the city. Foremost among those, as the city attorney's representative has pointed out in his summary of the issue, the proposed ordinance that the city has emulated from another unit of local government has not stood up to a legal challenge. This could cost the city significant amounts of money if challenged in court. But fundamentally, I oppose this ordinance for many reasons. Darien has been a nice place to live for a very long time. We have not had a single incidence of violent crime involving an assault weapon, which begs the question, why is now the time for this ordinance? Now, I understand the city's been put on the clock by state law. However, the motion for this ordinance cites violence around the country as an impetus for needing this ordinance. Why didn't the council act in the wake of those incidents versus waiting until this state law was passed? If this ban was that important to pass because of those incidents, this council would have acted on this ordinance at that time. The city attorney's representative also notes in his brief that the ordinance would not be effective on any non-Darien resident. Our most recent tragic incident involving a firearm was perpetrated by a non-Darien resident who used a firearm that would not have been banned by this ordinance even if he were a resident. The only other homicide in Darien in recent history involved a knife and not a firearm, and that would have occurred whether this ordinance was in place or not. This ordinance will do nothing to make Darien a safer place to live. Whether we look at the incidents cited in this motion or we look at the two most recent homicides in Darien, the perpetrators in these cases were sociopathic, psychopathic, or homicidal. It was easy to write. And no law in the books, such as the murder statute, stopped them from committing their crimes in this ordinance, and this ordinance wouldn't stop the same from happening here. The only people that will be affected by this ordinance are the law-abiding gun owners of this city. Make no mistake about it. Some of the weapons that you propose to ban, or the magazines that you propose to ban that have more than 10 rounds, exist in this city right now, and there has been no violence with a single one of them. These weapons are intended to be used for lawful purposes or for self-defense. In your proposed self-storage ordinance, you stipulate to that fact with a clause that allows the very same firearms you seek to ban to be used in self-defense if necessary. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to say that I appreciate you taking the time to consider this issue and listening to the voices of your constituents. It's the voices of all of those in your wards that are here tonight, that are watching TV, that have emailed you and phoned you over the last week when this all started, that I hope that those people that elected you to represent them, and it's with my sincere hope that you vote tonight with those voices and not a single voice based on an individual opinion. I thank you for your time, and subject to any questions or comments that you have, that concludes my remarks.
Thank you.
Sorry, I have a long address. Thank you again.
Okay, Matt. I just want to remind you, if your comments are similar to what has already been said, just to concur.
I'm going to be quick.
Oh, thank you. And
This
you are?
is- I'm Steve Teagle, and I did send you an email.
I know,
and
you're not a Darien resident.
Yes, I am.
No, you're not. You're unincorporated Darien. That's not Darien. So I'd like the Darien residents to speak first. Thank you.
Hello, my name's Tom Camelli. I am a Darien resident.
Hi, Tom.
Hi. I had just a couple of questions. I know they've been alluded to, but I wanted to know, do we have an opinion from the attorney as to the risk exposure to the town if we adopted either one of these ordinances? And I don't know if I can ask that question or get an answer.
No one's asked me that question, and I've not provided that answer.
And have we set a reserve aside, or have you recommended a reserve for the amount of legal expenses? Because I know we hear litigation, and I think it's fair to assume that whatever side you are on this issue, it's going to be a costly fight. And I'm concerned, from somebody living in this community, that we're going to be putting a lot of resources into a fight that I believe, whatever side you're on, belongs at the state level or the national level, and probably is best left at that level instead of here. I'd also like to point out, and again, I'm coming from the perspective of, do we really want to put Darien in a situation, we can see the number of people here that are obviously concerned about this issue. Do we want to divide this community and have future elections decided on individual stances on gun control? I don't think that's a good idea, but I do perceive if something is passed, we're going to have situations where people are going to be running on a gun control advocacy issue, either for or against. Is that what we want the town to turn into? And I would respectfully say no. Again, I do think that when you kind of consider all of these things, it's best left at the national or state level. The final comment I want to make, which probably will show my bias, but I do want to make it anyways, which is that I do always find it unusual in this discussion that we have individuals who have never fired a gun, who have never had to deal with the situation of self-defense. I've never had to deal with that situation. But I do know this. When discussing how many bullets you should be firing and defending yourself, I just find it absolutely preposterous that somebody sitting legislating is going to tell somebody in a home, 10 shots is more than enough, because my response back would be, what happens if there's 4 or 5 people invading your home? what happens if you miss with a couple of shots, which I know people miss stationary targets. So you're going to be in and then what happens if you wound the person, because wounded people can fire back and hurt somebody. So I respectfully would suggest that these are issues, I think, that belong in the home. We're dealing with law-abiding citizens. If they're not law-abiding citizens, we have rules and regulations to affect that. But otherwise, the defense of your home, what type of gun you want to own, what type of ammunition you want to have, I think is best left to the individual to decide.
Thanks, Tom. Thank you.
Okay, I think, thanks, comments. Just one comment. I think a point that was brought up is very important. The city, obviously, as all the aldermen know, passed a number of laws, whether there be zoning, housing, a lot of things. And any law or ordinance we pass, we certainly weigh if there, potential of somebody litigating against that. And I think that's a fair question, Pete, that you should probably advise the council on. This obviously is a new issue for Illinois. Communities have done different things. Maybe, again, for the alderman, you can comment on the litigation aspect of these ordinances or potential, and give the council some
Especially the storage
feedback.
one. Yeah.
Who knows? I mean, you've
Yeah.
got Cook County is defending their ordinance currently.
Excuse me. I appreciate if you keep your comments to yourself.
I'm not
Well,
aware
our
of any other
attorney's speaking.
lawsuits being filed. There's been a lot of threats made about lawsuits being filed. My assessment with the safe storage ordinance is that a lawsuit's very unlikely, because in fact, most responsible gun owners do exactly what the ordinance requires. And that allows the city to ultimately, maintain the ability to look at this as the world evolves, your city evolves, to see if you ever need to do anything more. You do an assault weapons ban? Well, we know that those things are being litigated in other places. They're being litigated in Chicago. You've gotten a threat of litigation here. I know that. I saw that in an email. So would that happen? I don't know. But the difficulty, there is a difficulty in defending a case like this because the law is so uncertain. We know some things.
Yeah.
We know that handguns are considered a fundamental right. The Second Amendment is considered fundamental, but the Supreme Court said in Heller that there are other weapons that are not. Some weapons can be barred entirely. Other weapons that are not traditional may be subject to a different test. So we don't know. We know that probably regulations of semi-automatic handguns are going to be looked at as being a fundamental. It's going to be looked at under a strict scrutiny test, which means the government has the highest standard to meet in order to justify those regulations. But I think as you move up the scale to different kinds of firearms, I believe that courts will ultimately adopt probably the intermediate scrutiny test, which provides more ability for the government to justify and support and ultimately uphold certain regulations. But we don't know where that's going to be. No court yet has ruled on assault weapons, assault-style weapons, what standard is applied under the Second Amendment. So you ask me, I say, who knows? But I think that's the best assessment I give you. I think that's where it's going.
I can have a comment. In our packet here, under the three options, there is a bullet point that talks about legal risk. So, it still gives you an indication that, the first scenario is no risk, not to pass anything and just leave the state. And then it implies that we would be in a hard position to defend ourselves, under the placeholder one.
Ban?
And then the ban, of course, it sounds like, there's definitely legal risk. So I think you did a real cursory.
What did you just say about the placeholder?
The placeholder one says that it would be harder to defend the challenge. So right there, you're saying there is some risk.
If someone challenged us.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, that's what I thought you meant. Okay. Bob, you're on.
My name is Bob Fertelka, and I am a resident of Darien. I was involved with, at the time we called it the Combined Committee for Incorporation that incorporated Darien. I served 3 terms on the first city councils we had. We had crowds like this all the time. I'm surprised you guys are. We didn't have concealed carry back then, so it wasn't always so easy. But I wanted to make a comment on the historical aspect of this. When Darien was formed, it could have broken up into Clarendon Hills in part, Willowbrook, Westmont, Downers Grove. It didn't. The citizens in this area wanted to have their own municipality, and that's aside from the fact that nobody else wanted us anyway. But we did form Darien, and one of the basic tenets of what we were doing was that we wanted to have self-government, minimal self-government. We didn't want to create another bureaucracy like so many of our neighbors have. I think through the succession of council members, that's been done. So I would hope that the city council wouldn't feel obligated to vote on an issue or a law that will go away in 10 days. That's really not a good idea to have to vote on something. It's like meeting somebody that has something for sale, but you better take my offer now or you won't have it tomorrow. Be careful of that. Don't vote from ignorance, and I hate using that word because if you're not proficient on the definition of guns and what they are, you should really be careful before you vote on something that will affect the lives of a lot of people in Darien. Finally, I guess I can safely represent a group of citizens that are called seniors. Our time of running or duking it out with a home intruder has passed. The safest thing for us to do would be to have an effective way of defending ourselves in our home. And there's a lot of people, a lot of seniors that live alone in homes in Darien. And I think if they didn't have self-protection like that, they might be terrified. Because there are break-ins. That happens. In the neighborhood I live in, I guess there was a rash of them. And you want to be able to have the defense that is important for you. Finally, the only other comment I have to make is that if, in fact, a restriction on assault weapons was passed and a person's home protection was limited to handguns, in most cases, handguns have up to 3 times wall penetration of an AR-15. If you shoot your handgun in your house and it doesn't hit a post, doesn't hit furniture or an automobile, it's liable to go into your neighbor's house, very liable to. And if you shoot an AR-15, that's probably not going to happen. So, in effect, you could be creating, hypothetically, a worse situation. I'll see you guys in another 35 years.
Okay, thanks, Bob. Thank you.
My name is Ed Mack, and I too am a Darien resident on Creekside Lane.
Yep, and you sent us an email, Ed?
Did send an email. But the subject of my email was when I first thought there was going to be an assault weapons ban was going to be the only ordinance that was exclusively going to be discussed tonight. But now we have a middle ground, a very reasonable sounding safe storage ordinance is being proposed. I don't think that's very reasonable at all for a number of reasons. As you have, many people have said, this is a placeholder, which means by definition, all it is really intended to do is to preserve your power to continue to make future laws with regards to gun ownership. So in a sense, it's a Trojan horse designed to keep your power so that later on, when the next mass shooting occurs somewhere, when the next insane person does something crazy, now, in the fit of high emotion, you will now have the ability to ban the weapons that no one here wants to ban tonight. They won't want to ban them 6 months or a year or 5 years from now, but you want to preserve that ability. Why? We have the state of Illinois, which will make that decision for us in the course of their legislation. We don't need a patchwork of different ordinances, one for Darien, another one for who knows where. Let's let the entire state make the decision in the course of reasoned debate, which they have the time and effort to do in Springfield. We don't need to make this decision here tonight. Let's balance all the interests of the state. The upstate interest, the downstate interest, the urban interest, the suburban, the rural interests. That's the amalgam that we live in, and I think that we should let that decision be made at the state level for all of us so that we all understand what we're talking about. So I want to just say, I guess, in summary, that certainly no one here tonight is supporting the assault weapons ban, but just as equally repugnant to me, and I think to most of the people in this room, is the safe storage ordinance as well, because it does nothing other than potentially put off into the future the same assault weapons ban that no one here wants to deal with tonight. So I guess in conclusion, it's been said that the government that governs least governs best. Darien has always been a small government, low tax kind of a jurisdiction. Why do we want to bring in this highly partisan, highly toxic subject into our local community? I think one of the other speakers mentioned that. We do not. Let it go. Let your power go. Let's celebrate on July 20th. There's one less thing for this city council to have to worry about.
Thanks,
Thank
Ed.
you.
Thank you.
Hold on for just a minute. Alderman McIver?
I just have a clarifying question for the attorney. The safe storage ordinance, that does not mean that at some point in the future, if that were to be the direction, that there wouldn't have to be another public hearing and vote on any kind of change to that ordinance, correct?
If you're ever going to change the ordinance, you'd have to follow your usual ordinance process for changing it.
Yeah, it would have to be public. Yeah. Yes, sir. Did you write your name in?
Yes, I did.
Okay.
Jerry Miskowitz, Waterfall Glen. I believe I'm a Darien resident, and I believe I emailed the council.
You know what? I didn't get yours, Jerry, but yes, welcome.
I got a reply from Mr. Kenny.
Okay, welcome.
I'm in the 5th Ward. So,
Yes, I know exactly where you're at.
I didn't
yes.
hear my name read into the record.
Yeah, I did. I guess I didn't get that email. Yeah.
All right, but I agree with all the previous speakers. I'm not going to take a lot of time here. The city of Chicago, the county of Cook are very bad examples for this town to be following. You see what goes on there every weekend, read news reports. I just urge the council to vote no on any restrictions at all. Thank you.
Thank you, Jerry. Thank you. My goodness.
Writing as fast as I can.
Okay. You are?
Hi, my name is Bradley Carino. I'm a Darien resident for the past 3 years. I am also a member of the NRA, ISRA, and the Aurora Sportsman's Club, so I do welcome any of you who'd like to come out. I will pay for your guest pass if you'd like to try to shoot anything. Well, I appreciate rearranging the order for the award ceremony of people well-deserving. I have a child that I would like to get home and read his bedtime story to, so I'm going to be as brief as I can. I agree with many of the statements that have been made prior. What I would like to talk about briefly, as we are you're very well that many of us oppose the idea of banning assault weapons, is the storage of a firearm. The idea of having my firearm in the trunk of my vehicle under current state regulation does not allow me access if somebody were to carjack me, if violent family members attempted to come after my son after a very heated divorce. I had to leave that gun in the trunk and be as defenseless as I can at a red light, in a parking lot, or anywhere else that I was with my son. You can keep it in the center council. In the council since 2009. Since 2009, right. The divorce was prior to that. So anyway.
We get to hear all the personal stuff here too.
You
don't
do,
we?
you do, because this is as people have alluded to, this is a very personal regulation, and this is something that it impacts us, more so than what we're going to do with the building on 75th and Plainfield. In that matter, we trust an expert who has been trained and has his experience, not a demolition team. Likewise, trust those of us that have been in situations that give us grave concern for the safety of our families. I would like the ability to have access to my firearm when I need it. I don't want to have to unscrew a gun lock on the trigger, pull it out of a case, which is stored with a key, which is in 2 rooms away from my bedroom. I want to be able to access my firearm as soon as I hear that glass break and my security system go off. I don't think I can conclude any better than that, so thank you.
Thank you. Okay.
Okay, the name's Thomas Kozlow. I'm a resident of Darien, 7830 Darien Lake Drive. I've got a question for the council, city council. The HB 183, from what I understand, the city cannot regulate handguns, is that correct?
Regulation of handguns is preempted, right?
Okay, and if a handgun has magazine that comes standard with that handgun of more than 10 rounds, would that be a regulation of a handgun if you're not allowing more than 10 rounds?
No, I mean, a handgun, let's say your Glock 17, that has more than 10 rounds, is designed and intended for operation with one hand, and the regulation of that is preempted.
You just says, in the ordinance, it just says anything over 10 rounds.
You don't understand. I said that, we talked about this originally. Semi-automatic pistols are unique. And the example I just gave you is correct. That is not preempted.
It says
It's
a
not
large...
regulated. We cannot regulate those weapons. That example, that handgun I gave you, and I can give you numerous other examples that are not.
Okay, but the ordinance says large capacity magazine means any ammunition feeding device with the capacity to accept more than 10 rounds is banned.
No, sir, that's not correct.
Okay.
When it is used in conjunction with one of the assault weapons as defined in the ordinance. But your semi-automatic handgun that is designed and intended for use with a single hand is not limited to 10 rounds, period.
Okay, okay. Also, talking about the Safe Storage Act or the Safe Storage Ordinance, didn't D.C. have a Supreme Court case where that was struck down by the Supreme Court?
No, there's a lot of folks in the gun enthusiast ranks who think that safe storage was held invalid under Heller. That's incorrect. What happened in the Heller case was the District of Columbia had an ordinance that forbid the use of a handgun or any firearm in your home under any circumstances. It had to be locked, always. You could only use it if you took it to your place of business or you took it to a recreational area, a range. That was the only place you could use it. This ordinance doesn't do that. That's what made that requirement unconstitutional under Heller, because you would never use the weapon for self-defense lawfully. This ordinance doesn't do this. This ordinance says that you can carry your weapon around in your house if you like. You can carry it loaded in your house, not a problem. But when it's not under your control or under the control of an authorized user in your house, it's with a trigger lock or locked in a safe. And the gentleman who spoke earlier, he wants to be able to get at his weapon wherever it's at. Well, if you're 3 rooms away, you're still going to have to go get it when that glass breaks. But no, if it's under your control, it doesn't have to be locked, period. So that's what the ordinance says.
Okay. It just appears to me that there's a lot of people here that do not want to go ahead and have any ordinance passed, and I think by show of hands or a clap, is there anybody here that... Is there anybody here that does want some sort of ordinance passed? Last question. Whose bright idea was this to bring this up for the city council?
State of Illinois.
General Assembly.
The General Assembly was the one that asked us.
They handed it to us.
We're a little bit different than a lot of municipalities. Everything is done in public here so that everyone knows what we're doing, and that's why you have the opportunity to come here and speak today.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Hi, my name is Bill Fosgate. I'm a Darien resident. I'm sorry. My name is Bill Fosgate. I'm a Darien resident. I hadn't originally planned to talk, so humor me. This is going to be off the cuff. First of all, I want to thank you for doing this out in the open where we can all participate and you can hear our commentary. This is very much in the Jeffersonian precept of how a republic is supposed to be run. I'd like to also thank the attorney, for, Mr. Koblenz, is that correct, sir?
Yes.
For your very cogent commentary and information. The one thing that struck me that is of a concern regarding that is it doesn't seem like the city council has enough information regarding the risk exposure in the event one of these laws is passed. As a finance guy who works for a real estate company, that's, the risk of lawsuits is always one of the primary things you do if you ever want to build anything, much less demo it. So I would encourage the council, in the event you do move forward with any of this, that you stay the commencement of it until you can fully assess what the risk is and what the cost is to all of us homeowners that would have to ultimately pay the bill. Finance aside and numbers aside, since that's kind of my professional life, I would urge the council to err on the side of the founding fathers in terms of the Constitution as written and the amendments thereof, as well as the words of my father, who was a physician, who also served in World War II, and my uncle, who also served in World War II as a medic under Patton. In medicine, the first thing you do is you try to do no harm. Then, if it is possible not to do harm, you seek to correct the problem. Based on everything I've seen and read in my 12 years living in this community, we don't really have a problem to solve. So I would urge the council to bear that in mind as you pursue your decision. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. One guy gave away his time.
Good evening. My name is Patrick Donaldson. I live at 2029 Oldfield Road in Darien. I lived there for 16 years with my wife. I happen to be a retired active duty Army officer, served in the infantry and cavalry for 21 years, and worked pretty hard to defend my rights, I think, our rights. In preparation for the meeting, I hopped on the website and looked at a couple FBI crime report statistics. In the last 10 years or so, firearm homicides have fallen per 100,000 people from about 7 to 3.8. These are national statistics. Assault weapons that are enumerated in the proposed ordinance account for 1/5 of 1% of reportable crimes in the United States. Those same assault weapons account for slightly less than 1% of all crimes that concern guns and robberies, assaults, armed assaults, etc. Less than 1%. And I think in Darien that's even probably a lot less. So what I would submit to you is that the so-called assault weapons ban would have next to zero effect, either in the United States or here in Darien. So I would urge the council to consider what everybody's here said tonight and reject items 17C and D on the agenda. Thank you.
Thank you. Ooh. Is that a VFW
American-
head?
No, I am American Legion Westmont. I was in during peacetime as a Navy veteran, not eligible to be in VFW during peacetime.
Okay, I'm just curious because Matt Goodwin, who is with the VFW, chose not to wear his hat this evening because he wasn't speaking for the VFW. So that's the only reason I asked you about the hat. Okay, now we have.
Mayor, City Council, I'm actually wasn't expecting to speak or planning to speak, so this is more of a little anecdote of, on spring break, I went down to Corpus Christi, and while I was waiting for the airplane in Houston, met a 84-year-old veteran of 42 years. He had been in all 4 branches of the service, worked for the CIA, now lives in Costa Rica. Had some fantastic stories. All of them he concluded with saying that you can't prove anything I say. With that being said, I asked him, do you have any suggestions with all the debating going on? He goes, the country is going, or the government is going to crap. Buy as many guns, buy as much ammo as you can. Which part of the government are you guys?
That's crazy. Look at this. I think I will do a poll with the council.
Good evening, Mayor Weir, City Council Darien. My name is Mark Provenzano. I live in the 3rd Ward. I prepared a long sheet of paper and facts that talk about this assault weapon ban, and a lot of those great points have been brought up here this evening, and I'm not going to rehash those, so I'm going off the cuff at this point. Like many people I know in this room, I am also a veteran of this current conflict. 3 tours I've done so far, and I'm preparing for my 4th. I also have 4 children that live in this community, ages 8 through 15. All 4 of them are avid shooters of all the weapons that we talk about this evening. So when I come home next time for my next tour of duty, and they hear the stories of the young men that I've been with that have been killed, have been wounded severely, how do I address them when they know that I'm there trying to uphold the Constitution of our country and say, you know, kids, I'm sorry, we can't shoot these weapons anymore because somebody has taken those rights away from us. How do we answer those children? How do we? You know, how do I look them in the eye and say, you can't do that because somebody who else believes that those rights that are guaranteed by our Constitution are no longer your rights? Thank you.
In a well-regimented militia. Shall not be
Shall not
infringed.
be. We are the militia. We are the militia.
I know, I'm going to go to, I'm sorry.
That's what we are. When I'm not here in uniform, we are the militia.
Excuse me for making that comment. I was just mentioning what's in the Second Amendment. That's all I was doing, okay? Thank you. Are your comments?
If this does go forth and this is banned, I would like you to make those comments to my children when I come home.
Thank you.
Time.
Okay, thank you very much. I'm going to take, I'm going to take some liberty here and I poll the council. Is there anyone in support of an assault weapon ban? Would you raise your hand? The ordinance that states that is one of the proposals before us. Is anybody in favor of an assault weapon ban? Okay,
Wait.
that's.
Just to be clear, Mayor, are you talking about item 17?
Let's see.
17C?
17C.
17C. Yes, is anyone in support of that ordinance? Yes.
I would, one thing, we're really kind of going off the agenda here.
We
but-
certainly are, because we had such a large crowd, and I
Right,
felt the
right.
need to allow people to speak.
And I think that everyone, there's been a lot of.
Sylvia, can you get a little closer?
Yeah,
I'm
sorry. There's been a lot of great points made here, and we talk about trusting an expert. And when it comes to weapons, I guess I feel like our expert for the city and the city council would be the chief of police and the police who represents the police department. And I'd like to just understand what law enforcement agencies, I've heard statistics used regarding the FBI, other police departments. I mean, what is law enforcement's position when it comes to this topic? Because I think that's fair to ask law enforcement to state,
Please.
Okay, I would like to preface my commentary by saying, first, as the chief law enforcement officer in Darien, I am bound by the Constitution to support the Constitution and whatever laws are enacted. And so whatever laws are enacted, I intend to support and defend. Having said that, the International Association of Chiefs of Police in 2007 and 2009 all rallied to maintain the assault weapons ban. And so that was the official posture of the International Association of Chiefs of Police. As a police officer, I have faced assault weapons, and certainly those of you who have cited the small portion of homicides that are committed with an assault weapon are accurate. The number of actual homicides committed with assault weapons isn't nominal. I think it's somewhere between 1% to 2%. On the other hand, there are officers every day who go out and face offenders with assault weapons that don't rise to the level of a homicide, who are literally outgunned by offenders with assault weapons.
Please, don't, the chief is speaking.
So with that in mind, I think we have to be prudent. I'm not advocating one way or the other. I intend to uphold the law, whatever laws are enacted. And assault weapons are dangerous. Penetration levels, muzzle velocities are much higher. Muzzle velocity is the speed at which a bullet exits a firearm's barrel. Muzzle energy is the relative impact or penetration power. Muzzle velocities are measured in feet per second. Muzzle energy is measured in feet per pound. And so there are some significant differences in handgun muzzle velocities and muzzle energy and rifle M16, AR-15, AK-47, 7.62, 30-06, 30 caliber. There are some significant differences in firearm muzzle velocities and handgun muzzle velocities and penetration and those weapons. But as the chief law enforcement officer, I intend to uphold, as I've been sworn to do, whatever laws are enacted.
Thank you.
Okay. All right, if there's no support for item C, then the next item pertaining to assault weapons is item D, which would be the storage or ordinance. Do we have support for that ordinance? Okay. Anyone else? Yes, Alderman McIver.
We just haven't had a discussion. I mean, this has been a very kind of disorganized.
Very
meeting.
disorganized because we had such a large crowd, but
Right,
please go
right.
ahead.
Well, the 10-day rule that everyone is saying, go by the state, but nothing for nothing, that's who's imposing this 10 days for us to rush into making a decision. So that being said, I think we as a city pride ourselves in making decisions based on due diligence and taking the time for an issue such as this that impacts residents, both those that own guns and those that do not, warrants adequate time and time to do that due diligence. And based upon the feedback I receive from my constituents, I think that it's prudent to vote for the safe storage ordinance, which does not preclude people from defending themselves. If I read that correctly, it doesn't preclude anyone from the conceal and carry. The law is passed. I mean, that doesn't harm the gun owner. It's not, it gives time for either state legislation to develop and or federal. I believe that there was federal legislation that lasted 10 years, if I recall correctly. So I think that safe storage option. I think, knowing that I have children too, knowing that if they go to a home where someone owns weapons, knowing that those weapons are potentially locked up safely and not in the hands of, teens at a party, whatever the case may be. I mean, I as a parent, as the wife of someone who is in law enforcement, the wife of a veteran, the daughter of a veteran, would say that, as I grew up with guns in my home, my dad was a collector, and, he always safely stored weapons, and I think that's just a prudent, good decision, and that is why I would support that particular option.
Alderman Kenny?
Mayor, we've got a lot of correspondence over the course of the last couple of weeks, and I gotta say, I've got an email from the gentleman last night and wanted to know why we came up to such a hasty decision, and it was because of the way the state statute. And we talked about this at our last city council meeting, and this was already prepped up. There are a lot of communities that just heard about their communities this past Thursday because of the Open Meetings Act. They only had 48 hours. I think the city of Darien, we've gone above and beyond the times for the due diligence to make sure that we're getting ourselves all prepped up for that. That's one. Secondly, the lady who mentioned about baseball and betting in Darien, with the White Sox and the Cubs, you might want to do that. That's another story, okay? However, I can't sit here in good faith, being the alderman of the 3rd Ward, knowing that if I pass this ordinance for safe storage, that the person at 1601 Holly Avenue has got to obey by that law, and her neighbor right across the street at 18 West 350, whatever the address is, who's only 50 feet from her, does not have to obey by the same law. We have a unique situation where we have, at least in my ward, I have a very, very good amount of non-Darien residents, unincorporated, that are neighbors with the 3rd Ward, and there's no way I can in good faith, and I hope none of us in good faith, vote for this portion of the ordinance. I think we've all done our homework. Everybody in this crowd has done their homework. I know I've been looking at this for the last 3 weeks, saying I can't wait till this night is over so we can put this to rest. But I think we have had our due diligence, and I think we've beat this issue around as much as we can. Thank you.
Alderman Belke?
Yes, the constituents in my ward, absolutely, I've heard 100% basically to do nothing and let the state go. I think that the ordinance that's a hybrid of it and just allowing more time would not work in my ward, because they're clear to me that they do not want any involvement.
Alderman Seifert?
This may come as a shock, but I have some strong feelings about this, so I sort of have to put a disclaimer on it.
You don't have to put any disclaimers.
I will, though. I have a FOID card. I own weapons. I have shot assault weapons. And at some point, I think back in my military days, I was at some point even maybe proficient in assault weapons. That doesn't mean I want to own an assault weapon, and I really have no intention of owning an assault weapon. But I think Alderman Kenny said it correctly, and a couple other people have said it too. The thing that scares me, aside from the Trojan horse aspect, is that this is going to be a patchwork of municipalities where you could be buying something at Cabela's and you're violating 3 laws on your way to your house. That doesn't make a lot of sense. And for something as significant as this, to not have something uniform, I think it's just a dangerous proposition, and I really don't even think either of these 2 ordinances should get a second and be voted on.
Alderman Marquez?
Thank you. As Alderman Belke, I've received nothing but some really negative feelings about all these proposals tonight. I went in and actually read all of the House Bill 183 because somebody said you better read it so you understand it. I have a lot of concerns about House Bill 183 and whether or not the state's going to have the infrastructure set up to be able to do it. That said, I don't own guns. I've never shot a gun, but I have a lot of good friends who own them. They use them for hunting. I have a lot of friends of mine who are hunters. I have a lot of friends who own them for self-defense purposes. They're all good people. I trust them. I trust that they're going to use them properly. I really agree with Alderman Kenny. How do you create something that's going to impact the city of Darien resident where, 50 feet away or 100 feet away, you have non-Darien residents? I don't want to see Darien residents subjected to something that's different. I don't always trust the state of Illinois. I really don't trust the state of Illinois. It's kind of my hope that legislation will evolve and saner minds will prevail, and that something is done at that level. I'd rather see the state bear the responsibility for doing that. That said, I don't want to see Darien residents impacted where they're going to have something any different than residents in any other community. For that matter, you should also know that there's probably about 8 municipalities discussing this tonight. My son works for ABC News. I said, why don't you send a news crew out to Darien tonight? He goes, Dad, he says, there's 8 other municipalities besides Darien. So this is not something that we're talking about tonight. And I hope all those municipalities have the openness and are listening to their residents as much as we are. What I just said is not predicated on whether or not I want you to like me, vote for me. It's what I believe is the right decision. Believe me, this is a difficult decision. This is something that I have pondered, and I told my wife if I could become violently ill before tonight, that would be okay. But I'm here because I have a responsibility, and my responsibility is to do what I think is best for the residents of the city of Darien, and right now I think saying no to each of these 2 ordinances is the proper thing to do.
Alderman Shower.
Ladies and gentlemen, I actually ended my vacation early to come on back here, and I'll just keep it short and sweet. We should say no to both of these, so that's it.
Alderman Belzic.
I am not a gun enthusiast, and I never shot a gun either. And originally I thought, well, safe storage makes sense. Who's not against having safe storage of a handgun or of a rifle? But the more I thought about it, and it all comes back to what's already been said by the council, is we're a small community that's surrounded by other communities that aren't going to have the same law, and I really do think it is a federal or a state issue. So I'm not going to support it.
I happened to speak to, I have to remember his title. State Representative Ron Sandek was in our parade on the 4th of July, and we were discussing the concealed carry and how they were going to handle this after the governor's veto. And his main concern was exactly what a couple of you have voiced, is that all the municipalities that are taking up this and have been forced to take it up by the state legislature will come up with a myriad of laws across our area, and will have residents that don't know what they need to do as they drive around. So it is a concern. I was in support of the safe storage ordinance because I think it's a good way to go. We don't know what's going to come forward in the future, and we didn't want, with the safe storage ordinance, we would not preclude other city councils in the future from taking action if they so chose to. That's what was the intent of the safe storage ordinance. But I would like to recommend that we remove items C and D from new business for tonight's discussion. If that's
Motion.
If everybody's in agreement.
Motion.
Okay. Okay. So
And
now,
again, the net effect of that is then
It kills it.
the net effect of that is that the city of Darien will be not taking any action in response to what the state legislature asked us to do with the Concealed Carry Act.
I think we should vote. I think we should vote on this, Mayor. I really do. That's why these people are here tonight.
Okay.
It's only take us 10 seconds. Let's do it.
Okay, you'll have to sit a little bit longer because we have a number of items that we haven't discussed this evening. I'd like to offer to the city clerk, do you have any comments or any information you'd like to share with the council?
Nothing to add, but we have not approved minutes or treasurer's report also.
Okay, that's right, I forgot about that. Okay, let's go back to item 6 on the agenda, the approval of the minutes of June 17th. Alderman Marquez, seconded by Alderman Kenny. Any additions or deletions to the minutes for the clerk? Then the roll, please.
Marquez.
Aye.
Kenny.
Aye.
Belkey.
Aye.
Belzak.
Aye.
McIver.
Aye.
Shower.
Aye.
Seifert.
Aye.
7 ayes.
Okay, let's move to the city administrator report.
Just one item, Mayor, and probably many residents know if I get a room full of residents, I'll give a commercial for our Direct Connect. So if, for those residents that have not signed up for our Direct Connect, please do. It's very simple. You can go on our website. We're probably over 1,200 people now. And every Friday, we send out our electronic newsletter. A number of you get it, I know, and have responded. And we can, every Friday, put out very important information. As an example, this meeting, other city council meetings and agenda, schedules for brush pickup. So again, I really had no report other than I'll take advantage of the room full of residents. So please sign up. It's very simple. Thank you.
Okay. Department head information?
No report, Mayor.
I've got something. I'll just keep it pretty brief.
Okay, Scott.
We've had a lot of elected officials and residents alike suffer.
A little closer, Scott. Sorry.
Suffer through a number of power outages, especially with the storms that have come through over the past few months. Gotten a lot of correspondence about different problem areas. Just as a little bit of a recap, where we've been with ComEd over the past 10 years. We sued Commonwealth Edison back in 2005, and as part of that lawsuit, we ended up with a consultant who taught us really the means to go about improving reliability on ComEd's system. And we've had them spend millions and millions of dollars in Darien on different projects to improve reliability. Also, we have a process where we evaluate different types of outages to determine where problem areas are so we can go and attack that on our own. Now, we had a lot of outages over the past few months. Most of these were related to storms, which are very rarely issues with ComEd's system. We tend to have more issues with their responsiveness at that point. So we as staff go through and try to get ComEd to spend as much time in Darien repairing our specific outages as opposed to going anywhere else. Right now we have one problem area around Crest and 69th that there may be some reliability improvements on. Most of the other areas, they don't look like they have that justification yet. The Darien system itself is still far better performing than other neighboring communities in the system as a whole. So we do have that, but as people do ask questions or ask if their reliability is worse or if their neighbor tends to be off more, that's really where we're at right now in evaluating some of those outages.
Thanks, Scott. The areas that the residents that reported to me regarding their outages, are those part of the problem areas?
Some of them, the ones around Crest and 69th, there's an area of about 34 homes that do have that. The other areas, not at this point.
They were just individual, isolated
So
incidents.
even if you have a 3-day outage as an example, if that was related to a storm, if lightning struck a ComEd pole and that caused a 3-day outage, we can't really go to ComEd and say you did something wrong. It was a bolt of lightning that hit something that was properly working on the system. So we have that area around Crest and 69th where there does just seem to be a problem at the moment. So that's what we're investigating with ComEd. But as far as the storms and those outages, most of those were due to the weather and problems there that ComEd really couldn't have fixed in the first place. It's more the responsiveness that we are concerned with.
Okay, thank you. We have eliminated so many areas in Darien that had constant outages, and that's thanks to our efforts to stay on top of ComEd.
Mayor, I have a quick question for Dan. Is brush pickup still going on? Because I still see like pockets of stuff here and there. It looks like a lot of stuff's gone, but then it like reappears, I guess.
As of today, we were completed.
Okay.
We'll do a canvas, probably we'll take a look at what's out there tomorrow.
Okay.
But after tomorrow, we are complete.
Okay.
Thanks.
That's from that's the June 25th storm, right?
Yes.
It lasted that long to
I
pick
saw
up.
still some today on my way over here. That's why I asked.
We'll take a look, but for my superintendent this afternoon, we were completed, so I'll double check with him.
Okay.
And residents are, if residents do have additional brush, they do have the opportunity to bring it down to our Public Works facility.
Okay.
We have a location there. It's displayed where to put the brush, so residents, please feel free to come down there and drop it off.
And Dan, they could do that even after Public Works hours. So if somebody gets off work at 5:30, they need to drop it off at 6:30, they can go down there to do that.
Yes, the facility is basically open 24 hours for our residents in regards to brush drop-off.
What's the address?
So-
Is that on frontage?
It's on South Frontage Road and Cass Avenue, just approximately quarter mile east of Cass Avenue on South Frontage Road.
Thank you.
Let's move to, okay, let's move to the treasurer's report. We have warrant number 13-14-05.
Finally, something fun. Let's talk numbers.
Oh, yeah, this is very exciting stuff now, yeah.
The council should have received a revised warrant number of 13-1405. The revision relates to the $41,900 reflected from the Water Depreciation Fund. When I was signing the bills for payment tonight, there was a bill for the repairs to the water tower, half the repairs to the water tower that was inadvertently stapled to the Home Depot bill. It was overdue, so we felt it was important to revise this and get it approved for payment this evening. So that's the revision on the warrant number. With that said, I'm requesting approval of warrant number 13-1405 in the amount of $828,303.85 from the listed funds. Payroll for the period ended June 27-13 of $254,527.81 for a total to be approved of $1,082,831.66.
Do I have a motion to approve the revised warrant? Alderman Seifert, seconded by Alderman Belke. Any questions for the treasurer? The roll, please.
Seifert.
Aye.
Belke.
Aye.
Kenny.
Aye.
Marquez.
Aye.
Belzak.
Aye.
McIver.
Aye.
Shower.
Aye.
7 ayes.
It's been approved. Did you want to go over the revenue expenditure report?
Yes, the revenue and expenditure report, the agenda reflects that it's for the month of June. It's not. It is for the month ended May 31st, 2013, the first month of our fiscal year. General fund reflects revenues of $993,354, expenditures of $1,040,832 for a fund balance of $2,018,896. Note that it also does reflect the transfer that's been approved in the city budget of the $2,900,000 to the capital improvement fund. Water fund reflects revenues of $3,062, expenditures of $88,996 for a balance of $876,114. Motor fuel tax fund, revenues of $38,223, expenditures of $25,923 for a balance of $333,550. Water depreciation fund, revenues of $641, no expenditures, fund balance of $763,660. Capital improvement fund, revenue of $2,903,393, expenditures of $249,365 for a balance of $6,553,188. Capital projects debt service fund, year-to-date revenues of $7, expenditures of $86,838 for a fund balance of a deficit of $78,971.
Any questions for the treasurer on the report?
$7? Can you explain that one?
Interest income.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
With those really high interest rates, you know?
I'm like, okay, we got these big numbers, and I see 7.
7, I know.
See if
That's-
you're staying awake.
Okay. Okay, we've gone over that.
rounded.
That moves us to standing committee reports. Do any of the chairman of the committees want to speak? Alderman Marquez?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The Municipal Services Committee will be meeting next Monday, July 22nd at 6:30 here in the council chambers. And I guess one of the items on our agenda will be the discussion of the center, correct?
It will, yes.
It's the,
Do you- yeah,
the 22nd, not the 29th?
The 22nd.
Okay, I just wanted to verify.
Next
Thank you.
Monday.
Now, do you think Shiv Hattery will have the report ready that quickly on the Phase 2?
That'll be only for the approval of the expenditure.
Yeah,
that we-
actually, what Dan and I had talked
Oh,
about.
okay. All right.
This next phase gets a little more expensive. It could be anywhere from $8,000 to $12,000, $13,000. Dan was out. We had talked. We are actually looking at maybe a second proposal as a comparison. The first phase, again, was very inexpensive, a couple $1,000s, but we wanted to get just a good cost comparison to bring forward to the committee. So we hope to have those proposals for approval, but not the report.
All righty, good. Thank you. Alderman Schauer?
Yes, our next admin finance meeting will be Monday, August 5th at 6 p.m. in the upstairs meeting room.
Alderman MacIver?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. This evening, the Police Committee approved 2 sets of meeting minutes from February 6, 2013 and June 17th, 2013, and Administrator Vanna will get those signatures
Yes.
from the Alderman present. Our next meeting of the Police Committee will be Monday, August 19th, 2013, 6 p.m. here in the council chambers.
Very good. Yes, Treasurer Court?
The Police Pension Fund will have their quarterly meeting to review the second quarter's fund performance. That'll be July 31st at 7 p.m. across the street in the police training room.
All are welcome. All right, that's the end of standing committee reports. Questions and comments, agenda related to, and I think we've covered that subject matter. But we have other items on the agenda. Did anyone want to speak to any of the other items on the consent agenda or under new business? Yes.
Mayor, one thing again for the audience who may not see many of the city council meetings in terms of the procedure, because I think at one point, Alderman Seifert mentioned maybe it wouldn't get a second, and Alderman Kenny wanted to vote on it. So again, just to explain to the residents what happens on these ordinances, let's say as an example, when we get to C, a city council member could make a motion to approve, and that can get seconded. That doesn't mean those two aldermen favor it. All that means it allows everybody to vote on it. If an alderman makes a motion to approve and there's no second, then there's no discussion and votes. So if the aldermen have interest in going on the record with a vote, you might want to make a motion in a second. If you don't care about that, then it might die and never be voted on. So again, I think for the audience to understand, I think was important.
Well, I think it's important for the council to understand that if they don't take action when those two items come up, it'll be the same effect as what I said, taking it off the agenda. So someone has to step up and be a motion and seconder. So, okay, yes.
I just have one question on the consent agenda, since we didn't have our work session this evening. Dan, it relates to you. Item C, we're approving for the fire hydrant, the repainting of the fire hydrants. I noticed we're approving DMD construction for Phase 1. They also have options for Phase 2 and 3 to be done in subsequent years. Those amounts are higher than the competitors. Right. I'm assuming that we would just rebid it next year and then go for the lowest bidder in subsequent years. We're not committing ourselves to years 2 and 3 with this vendor at that point.
Actually, the municipal services spoke of this very subject, and the idea behind it was the contract was to be awarded for year number 1, which is DMD. It also gave us the optional 2 years, which, like you said, are more expensive in the subsequent years. That vendor has informed me that he is willing to honor the competitor's pricing if we decide to, number one, fund it for next year, as well as proceed with that project, and based on the contractor's performance.
That's right. If we'll have an opportunity to, you just turn it off.
Yeah, it's got to reset.
Okay. We'll have an opportunity to see how DMD does.
Correct.
To see if we even want to consider extending the contract.
Correct.
We just had some work done on the system, so we're working out the kinks.
I thought it was my hearing aids going off again, Madam Mayor. I apologize. I'm glad I wasn't the only one that heard it.
Were you speaking to another item?
I am. Actually, I had a quick question under new business item B. I noticed that the city's entering into a contract with the crossing guard services for District 61. Is that commonplace for the city to do something that another taxing body would maybe contract themselves?
Funny you should mention that. Yeah.
Where have you been, Matt?
Yeah, Matt, I was just going to say, Matt, you haven't been following our city council meetings, have you?
A couple of other items of business dealing with veteran services, but no, I was looking at that and I thought, I remember Mrs. Hawken when she wasn't driving the bus doing the crossing guard services, so I didn't know how long we had been doing that.
Let me have Brian address that issue. It's been going on for quite a long time.
Well, the City of Darien overlaps with 3 local school districts, 61, 63, and 66. And over the last several years, the city has talked through our budget discussions about providing crossing guard services, because we have for a number of years, both 66 and 63 no longer have any intersections that we provide crossing guards, but District 61 still has along 75th Street. So again, the city has providing those services for many years. We've been talking about this now the last couple of years, and the city council has talked about, really it's the school district's responsibility ultimately to fund and maintain and monitor the crossing guards, and it's really not for the city to do. So that specific issue came to the city council this year. Should we continue the crossing guard services for another year, or should we then turn it over to the school district? And the school district attended a meeting, and they're not interested in paying for those services, for the crossing guard services. Obviously, the city will continue this for the next year, and I would imagine at budget time or before, the city council would be asked about this again, thinking that one of the main comments was you have, again, residents in different school districts, but yet this portion will fund only one of the school districts. So I think that's a quick summary, Matt, but I don't know if the council has anything different to add, but that's in a nutshell what's going on.
I think it was the intent of this council that after 2014, we would no longer be funding the crossing guards.
I'm a little gray on that, so I didn't want to speak. The council could
That was my understanding, yeah.
address that. The council passed a resolution saying they will definitely do it this fiscal year,
Right.
but nothing was passed saying they won't do it after that. So I think that is still up for future discussion. So, Matt, also, the city used to hire our own employees to provide these services, but we've looked the last couple of years, communities are going to Andy Frayne services. It's more cost effective, plus we get out of managing crossing guards, so hence we have this on for tonight.
Alderman McIver?
And for the record, the police committee met and discussed this item this evening at our police committee meeting and unanimously supported outsourcing to Andy Frayne for these services.
I think the concept was talked about a month ago, but we didn't actually have the agreement till the meeting tonight. That was
Very
approved.
good. Answer your question? Okay. Is there anyone else that wants to ask questions on any of the items on our agenda this evening? Okay, let's move to old business, and there being no old business, we'll move right to the consent agenda. And let me read those items for the viewing audience. Those items are, A is a consideration of a motion to approve a resolution authorizing the mayor to execute a contract with Classic Fence, Inc. in an amount not to exceed $37,820 for the purchase and installation of a 6-foot-high board-on-board fence. This fence surrounds our municipal facility here. Our item B is which is falling down in some areas. That's why the need for the expense. Item B is a motion to approve a resolution authorizing the mayor to approve an expenditure for landscape restoration, tree trimming or removal, and survey staking in an amount not to exceed $5,000. Item C is a motion to approve a resolution authorizing the mayor to execute a contract between the City of Darien and DMD Construction, Inc. for the 2013 fire hydrant painting Phase 1 in an amount not to exceed $35,520. Item D is a motion. We have, Dan, 840 fire hydrants in the City of Darien?
1,400.
I'm sorry, 1,400 fire hydrants. And this is just Phase 1.
Keep going.
Item D is a motion to approve a resolution approving the plat of drainage easement for the installation and maintenance of a storm sewer at 10,010, 10,014, 10,000, the numbers, that's 1010, 1014, 1018, 1022, and 1026 69th Street. It is late. Consideration of a motion is E, to approve an ordinance authorizing the disposal of surplus property, which is a Xerox Phaser 6360 color printer with 4 color cartridges. Those are the items on the consent agenda for vote. The motion to approve the consent agenda, Alderman Schauer, seconded by Alderman Kenny. The roll, please.
Shower.
Aye.
Kenny.
Aye.
Marquez.
Aye.
McIver.
Aye.
Belkey.
Aye.
Belzak.
Aye.
Seifert.
Aye.
7 ayes.
All items have been approved. Under new business, item A is consideration of a motion approving the annual dues payment for participation with DUMEG, which is the DuPage Metropolitan Enforcement Group, in an amount of $17,680. Do I have a motion to approve? Alderman Schauer, seconded by Alderman Seifert. DUMEG is, you know what, Brian, do you want to explain to the
I'll let
audience
Chief-
what
go ahead,
DUMEG?
Chief.
DUMEG is the DuPage County Metropolitan Enforcement Group, and they are responsible for drug enforcement. It's a countywide initiative that leverages the law enforcement capabilities of multiple jurisdictions. And so it's more cost-effective for us to use DUMEG as a resource than to train and equip all of our department for narcotics enforcement, because it's not a huge problem here. And so we maximize our ability with DUMEG.
Chief, can you also mention that what your take back is from any seniors and stuff, that there is some recoupment of that cost?
Very little.
Not with DUMEG. DUMEG, no,
No.
not with DUMEG. Our dues and normally their seizure amounts don't rise above $10,000. In talking with Mark Pickley, if there was a tremendous seizure that we had referred, then we'd likely get a return on it. Our return from seizures comes from our task force officers.
And this agency's been around for 25 or more years, so this is nothing new. The city participates in this annually.
And Mayor, this too was on our agenda this evening for the police committee, and it was
It was
also.
also approved?
It was also unanimously approved by the
Okay.
committee.
All right, we have a motion or seconder. Any discussion? The roll, please.
Shower.
Aye.
Seifert.
Aye.
McIver.
Aye.
Marquez.
Aye.
Belkey.
Aye.
Kenny.
Aye.
Belzak.
Aye.
7 ayes.
The motion has been approved. Item B is a motion to approve a resolution authorizing the mayor to execute a contract with ND Freight Services for District 61 crossing guard services for the 13-14 school year in an amount of $20,590. Do I have a motion to approve? Alderman McIver, seconded by Alderman Belzak. Discussion. The roll, please.
McIver.
Aye.
Belzak.
Aye.
Kenny.
Aye.
Belkey.
Aye.
Seifert.
Aye.
Marquez.
Aye.
Shower.
Aye.
7 ayes and no nays.
The motion has been approved. The item C is a motion to approve an ordinance amending Title 8, Police Regulations of the Darien City Code by adding Chapter 23, Assault Weapon Ban. Do I have a motion to approve? Alderman Kenny, and seconded by Alderman Schauer. I don't think we need any discussion. The roll.
Kenny.
No.
Shower.
No.
Seifert.
No.
McIver.
No.
Marquez.
No.
Belzak.
No.
Belkey.
No.
7 nays.
The item has not been approved. Item D is a motion to approve an ordinance amending Title 8, Police Regulations of the Darien City Code, adding Chapter 23 for safe storage of assault weapons. Do I have a motion to approve? Alderman McIver, seconded by Alderman Belkey. And the roll, please.
McIver.
Aye.
Belkey.
No.
Belzak.
Nay.
Kenny.
No.
Marquez.
No.
Shower.
No.
Seifert.
No.
1 aye and 6 nays.
The mic. The motion has not been approved. Let's move on to questions, comments, and announcements, first from the council. Does anyone have any announcements, questions, comments? Alderman Belkey?
I have a communication that we didn't
Oh,
get
that's
around
right,
to.
we passed that one up, too.
Right.
Okay. Go ahead.
Trying to find it. And always. Okay. This is from a resident by the name of Kathy Enright, who lives at 222 68th Street. So she has some concerns that I believe are documented in the city records. where her property is having really bad problems with stormwater systems, and she is referring to her property as a sinkhole. So there's very, very much concern with this resident. She doesn't want to put a lot of
Hold
money.
on, Tina. I'm sorry, we'd appreciate it if you would be quiet while you're leaving, so that we can hear what's being said up here. Thank you. Tina, I'm sorry, go
That's
ahead.
fine. The resident at 222 68th Street is having some serious problems with her property, and she is describing her situation as her property being in a sinkhole. And the city has documented this, I'm sure. Dan, if you could just maybe give me a little more information, or if you've talked to her recently since her email.
I haven't spoke to her since the email, but I've spoke to her in the past in regards to the problem that she's having. It's a combination of two problems. Number one is the city needs to do additional drainage work, which again is included within a ditch program in the future. I don't have those dates in front of me, as well as some additional grading work that the resident will also be required to do when the ditching is completed or that project is completed. So there is some history at this point. It's pretty much an issue that one can't be done without the other. So we need to be in there first. And again, it's projected for some years out here.
Okay, well, I'll work with you on that, right?
Is this in the Marion Hills area?
Yes.
Again? Iris, again?
No, this is 68th Street.
68th Street?
Yes.
Okay, all righty. All right, any other comments from any of the aldermen? Alderman Kenny?
I did have communications from Mr. Vince Esposito, 7300 block of Summit. He had apparently he might have an emerald ash tree on his side drive. Mr. Gomback knows about it. And we did have a correspondence from Mr. Nemec on a 7100 block of Hudson regarding an RV, which we're in the process of addressing that as well. That's it, Mayor. Thank you.
Okay, any other announcements? Alderman MacGyver?
Only because Alderman Kenny mentioned the tree. I did ask Dan this question. Obviously, there's we're having some losses this year because of not just storms, but because of the ash borer. And I asked him the question if we were going to have first of all, for those ash trees that are being removed on the parkway, is that a situation where the residents would have to participate in a 50-50 program, or is the city going to replace those trees? That's my first question.
Okay.
The city will be reimbursing all the ash trees that have been removed by the city, obviously, at no cost to the residents.
Okay. And then the second question is, will there be you answered this for me, but I'm doing it for the public, but if residents want to have private property trees replaced or adding private property trees, will we be going out for bid and having that pricing available to residents? And if so, when will that happen?
And the answer is yes, and just to let the residents know what Alderman MacGyver is referring to is it's the tree planting program for fall. Over the course of the next month, we'll be going out to bid for two portions. Number one is for tree planting for the city and tree planting for private residences. We also will be contacting the residences that we know of currently with the dead trees. So we'll be making contact to all those residents, as well as putting it out on a direct connect, and as well as the cable to let residents know that the program is up and coming.
Okay, thank you.
We've already started the ash tree treatment program, correct?
Correct, and as
Okay.
of last couple weeks ago, we were on par with completing it by the target date. I don't have the target date in front of me.
Okay.
But we did discuss at the Municipal Services Committee meeting as well.
And is that program still open for residents? I know
Yeah,
people did take advantage of it, but since they're still doing it, is it still available
The
for
Emerald
private property?
The Emerald Ash Borer?
Yes.
Yes, it is.
Okay, thank you. Yes, go ahead.
Sorry, Mayor Weaver. During the departmented reports, I think we rushed a tad bit, but Chief had one issue. Alderman MacGyver had contacted him today, and I thought he should at least let the public know and answer Alderman's question. Real briefly, Chief, go ahead.
Okay.
Just so the citizens are aware, we've had 3 residential burglaries in Darien over the past 2 weeks. In addition, we've had a couple of burglaries that have with similar modus operandi in our adjacent towns, and so we are working it up. And I don't want to reveal too much information about the MOs at this point because we don't want to alert the bad guys. But Alderman McIver called me today and alerted us to the fact that there was a solicitor, a young teen, who was selling candy from door to door, but he wasn't ringing every doorbell, just some doorbells, and he was making a phone call or using his cell phone after the contact or the bells were rung. And so it's a possibility, and we sent officers out. They did not locate this individual, but it's a possibility that this person could be casing homes and searching for who's not home or whose house is empty at the time. So I'm going to implore all of the residents to be very vigilant. And when you see something like this, don't hesitate to call 911. Pick up the phone immediately and call 911, and we're more than glad to come out and investigate. If we do nothing other than interview this subject, we may develop information that will lead us to an arrest at some other point. In addition to that, please make sure that, number one, if you have an alarm system at home, that it's working. If your alarm system is attached to your internet service, make sure that your router is properly working, because it'll give you a signal of communication failure, and your alarm won't be working. If you have sliding glass doors, make sure that you have a stick or something that prevents them from being slid when you're not home, should the lock be defeated, and make sure that that there's a glass break to your alarm system that alerts you if the glass is broken. If you leave town, don't allow your mail to collect without having someone pick it up. Those are just some things. And by all means, if you notice anybody suspicious vehicles, suspicious people, pick up the phone and call. The people who solicit for candy or anything else are bound by city ordinance to have a solicitor's permit. So thank you very much, Mayor.
Thanks, Chief. Appreciate that. Very good points. Alderman Marquez?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Chief, I had a number of residents from the Carriage Greens area where some of this took place who contacted me, and of course, I guess it was last Thursday, you were going to put out a flyer to the residents.
Press release, yes.
Throughout
Community
that area,
alert.
which they appreciated. One of the questions I was asked by the co-presidents of the Homeowners Association was whether or not they should form a community homeowners watch. And I think prior to your tenure here, we had another situation where we had residents come in and we encouraged them to do.
We do, all the time.
Do we assist them at all? Do we assist that group, or did we?
I think we do have an officer that will go out and speak.
Not only will they speak, but we also have a national training protocol for neighborhood watch groups. And so I've been encouraging folks to get involved in the neighborhood watch. I think I actually talked to Mary from the Homeowners Association there on Wednesday or Thursday.
Okay.
So yes, we do offer assistance, but the assistance goes beyond just conversation. We actually offer training.
They actually, one of their questions was, can we get a sign that says this neighborhood is protected by a community homeowners watch group? I don't know if there's any such
certainly
sign.
certainly we can get those signs, but it's a lot better to have those signs when they're used in tandem with an active group.
Okay.
It's not a good bluff to have if we're not really
Doing it, yeah.
doing the neighborhood watch.
Yeah.
Alderman Marquez, we did in Farmingdale Village.
Right, I remember that.
It has a pretty strong one, and it's with email communications. The police reports go out, and there was assistance from the police department to come meet with residents, kind of help them develop like neighborhood area captains and so forth, and how to set up communications. And then once that was in place, they did actually put up the signage too.
Well, I attended their last homeowners association meeting in Carriage Greens, and I was wondering maybe the next homeowners association meeting, if word was put out that maybe you or someone would attend that meeting to give them that instruction, they would have a good turnout that night.
All I need is an invite.
All right, I'll get that for you.
That's great. Great, okay. Any other questions, comments, announcements from the council? You're right, we didn't, I took the liberty to jump around, but I was trying to achieve a goal of limiting conversation until we got to item 14, but I don't think I was very successful, so you'll have to forgive me for that one. But I would like to open it up to the floor, questions, comments, and announcements of a general nature.
Well, I just want to come forward to say that I certainly appreciate the council listening to the people tonight, because in an age, in a time when I think it's very easy to be very cynical about government and to believe that government does not listen to the people, at least it's good to know that here in Darien, at our most local level of government, that you're good listeners, and I think we can all move on from here. So thank you.
Ed, I hate to break it to you, but we do this on a regular basis. Yes, whatever people want to talk about, we are here to listen. Bill, did you want to come up and speak?
Anticlimactic at this point. I had a problem with a tree this last month. My tree broke in half in my backyard. I don't know if it was struck by lightning or whatever. I cut it down myself, and I had all the debris laying around. And I called about the branch program, and I was told, it's going to be 3 weeks before the next pickup. So they suggested that I bring it over to the Public Works Department, and I would have done that, but it was really a lot. So I had asked, is there a program that you could pay to have that removed from your property? And they told me no. So I'd just like to know if we can talk about that, because maybe that's something the town could make money on.
Well, Bill, how large is the diameter of some of the?
Well, I already disposed of it, so it's.
Oh,
But
okay.
it was a huge tree. It was a crabapple tree.
Yeah,
that
because
was-
we have some limitations on size that our crews can take.
Right, but it laid, the debris from it laid on my lawn for 3 weeks. Okay, and I'm not, what could I do? It was a huge job. But what I'm asking is there a program that the town would be willing to do that as a, for homeowners? I'm not saying we wouldn't pay for it. We should probably pay for it.
At the homeowner's expense is what you're referring to?
Yeah.
I don't see why not, but at the same time, keep in mind, the storm that we had was unprecedented. We had
Well, this was before the storm.
June 20,
It was a week before that big storm.
it was a week before the storm, and you just didn't get a chance to get the brush out there, or you got,
No. It was, I had to wait the 3 weeks until brush pickup, came, and I just
okay.
it killed
You
my
wanted to
lawn.
get it done earlier, at a little more convenient time
Right.
for you.
And I asked that, of the Public Works, if there was a program in place, and they said no. So I think that's maybe something that we should think about.
I think it's something we could discuss with our committee and some of our enhancements on our other programs, whether it's private property, tree planting, tree trimming.
Okay.
But Dan, one of the things you obviously, as we know, you bid out for private property tree trimming. The vendor, is this something he might have assisted?
On this one,
home-
yeah, but I think we have to take a look at, we do have a program referred to as private property tree trimming and removal. That program is limited for, I believe it's 3 months. Can we provide a little more when to trim a tree, or I should say, extend the contract throughout the year? Yeah, but we want to be a little cautious in that, because you can't be just trimming a tree in the middle of August, for example. So, but I think that's
Well, this was the tree cracked in half. It might
Right.
have been struck by lightning. So all of a sudden it was on my neighbor's fence.
Sure.
I had no choice but to cut it up, and remove it. But, where was I gonna go with it?
Mhm.
I did bring a lot of it to the Public Works Department, but some of it I just couldn't move myself.
Yeah, if you want to stick around after the meeting, I'll make sure I get your name and give you one of my business cards and
Okay,
have
no,
a
I know how to get hold
conversation.
of you.
Okay.
I'm not shy.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. All right, there's nothing further. I'd like to ask for a motion to adjourn. Alderman McIver, seconded by Alderman Kenny. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
I'm trying to beat you.
That's it. The war is on.
Again?
Lost my temper.
Now that anything goes in Darien, now, watch out.
I think it worked out well.
Hey, Bill.
Be on future
Okay.
agenda.
How you
doing, Bill?
Thanks, Bill.